limitations to parliamentary privilege and practices of the Houses of the Oireachtas regarding reference you may make to other persons in your evidence. The evidence of witnesses physically present or who give evidence within the parliamentary precincts is protected pursuant to both Constitution and statute by absolute privilege. This means that you have an absolute defence against any defamation action for anything you say at the meeting. However, you are expected not to abuse this privilege, and it is my duty as Cathaoirleach to ensure that it is not abused. Therefore, if your statements are potentially defamatory in relation to an identifiable person or entity, you will be directed to discontinue your remarks. It is imperative that you comply with such directions. Witnesses remind of the long-standing parliamentary practice that they should not comment on, criticise or make charges against any person or any entity by name or in such a way as to make him or her identifiable, or otherwise engage in speech that might be regarded as damaging to the good name or reputation of a person or entity. Therefore, if your statements are potentially defamatory in relation to an identifiable person or entity, you will be directed to discontinue, and it is imperative that you comply with that direction. Members are reminded of the provision of Standing Order 218 that the committee shall refrain from inquiring into the merits of a policy or policies of the government or a minister of the government or the merits of the objective of such policies. Members are also reminded of the long-standing parliamentary practice that they should not comment on, criticise or make charges against a person outside the House or an official leader by name or in such a way as to make him or her identifiable. We are joined this morning by the Controlling Auditor General, Mr Seamus McCarthy, who is a permanent witness to the committee. And today we engage with Mr Ryan Tubridy and Mr Noel Kelly. Mr Tubridy and Mr Kelly have been advised the areas that the committee will focus on, and they are, and I'll list those out: payments to presenters and personnel at RTE, specifically from 2017 to date; details of Mr Ryan Tubridy's contractual relationship with RTE, including related payments and exit fees; the process relating to the tripartite agreement from 2020, including its negotiations and sign-off; the content of that tripartite agreement and the issue of being underwritten by RTE; the raising of associated invoices and related payments, the details of the invoices and who is aware of the same; any instructions given by Mr Ryan Tubridy to Mr Noel Kelly, and any further discussions in that regard before finalising the agreement; the call on the 7th of May 2020 and the letter that followed from Ms D Forbes to Mr Ryan Tubridy; and then any matters arising from material provided to the committee in advance of the meeting or materials provided by RTE to the committee. I'd like to thank the witnesses for appearing, and I welcome the fact that you've attended. We didn't have to compel your attendance voluntarily before this committee to assist in our examinations. And just before I ask Mr Tubridy for his opening statement, just to mention that the documents have come late. We were promised them yesterday morning. We didn't receive them. Some members received them as they were travelling here this morning, and only had sight of them in the last hour. And the other thing I want to set out is that the position of your legal advisor, just to remind them that the attendance of your legal advisor is with the agreement of the committee. They're not entitled to contribute or to disrupt the meeting or interfere with the conduct of the meeting in any way. So, Mr Tubridy, just if we could have your opening statement, please.
Of course, Cathaoirleach Deputies, good morning to you all, and first let me thank you for acceding to my request to come before you today. We felt it was really important to be here. I've always believed in the importance of public service. I was brought up that way, and I have great respect for the Oireachtas as an institution. I've come here, as you know, voluntarily, because I believe in the work that you as a committee are doing. I don't say that in any other way other than that I want to assist in every way I can. I appreciate that you'll have a lot of questions, so I'm going to try to keep my opening statement as short as possible. I begin by clearly and unambiguously at the very outset this morning state that I'm truly sorry for all of this and for any part which I have played, and be it consciously or unconsciously, and anything that has contributed to the debacle that we're dealing with today. I'd like to apologise to the committee that they've had to take this time to deal with this matter today, and to my colleagues in RTE, and to my listeners. So, given the events of the last 3 weeks, there is a lot that I wish to say, and there's a lot that I need to say. So please bear with me. My aim today is to help correct and clarify some very serious matters, and I'll be relying on my agent, Noel Kelly, here to go through the figures and provide greater detail. I'd like everybody here today to understand that the figures and statements presented by RTE over the last few weeks in relation to my remuneration have created a fog of confusion. A fog of confusion over what I was paid, and when I was paid, and what I knew, and when I knew it. Full transparency and disclosure on RTE's part, I'm sorry to say, would simply have avoided so much of this. And I'm here to do one thing and one thing only, ladies and gentlemen and committee members, and that is to set the record straight and to call out some untruths. And it is my belief that there are 7 material untruths that I'd like to address. And the first is as follows. This claim that I did not take a pay cut from RTE in 2020, this is not true. I took a 20% pay cut from RTE in my 2020 to 2025 contract. Simple as that. I took a 20% pay cut from RTE. I'm obliged to do and present 205 radio shows and 38, as it was then, live 2-hour late shows under this contract. I am what's called an independent contractor. I get no pension or entitlements from RTE. That's the nature of it. Under the terms of my contract, I'm allowed to do additional work outside of RTE. That's also the nature of it. And I stress that there is nothing morally, ethically or legally wrong with me or any independent contractor doing additional work for another client outside of RTE. But to be clear, I took a pay cut from RTE of 20% in 2020 for each of the 5 years of my contract at a cost of €525,000 to me over the length of that contract. It's an awful... I'll move on to my second untruth. The suggestion that my decision to retire from the Late Late Show was prompted by this whole debacle. This is not remotely true. I wasn't aware of any of this fiasco when I decided to retire from the Late Late Show. I made my initial decision to leave the Late Late Show pretty much a year ago. It was very personal. It was made in the heart and in the soul. Around this time, I mentioned it to those closest to me, my family and my agent and a few others, and they were surprised. They were very surprised. Why would you leave such a show? And I explained to them, and eventually brought them around to my way of thinking, that among other things, I had left a lot of me on the floor in the studio after COVID and during COVID. I was burnt out, being honest with you, and I was exhausted. A lot of people in this country, as you know, were burnt out and exhausted after COVID, doing a lot more important jobs than I was doing, but I'm just telling you from where I'm coming from. So I turned it over in my mind over a few months, but by the time I got to January, there was no turning over in my mind. I knew it was time to go. I made the decision. And just to make it abundantly clear, there is zero connection between my departure and this very raw situation of recent weeks. I informed management on March 13th of this year. I first became aware of this Grant Thornton review in May, some 2 months later, and even then I had no inkling of the bombshell which was to come when RTE released their statement on June 22nd. The third untruth is that I was covertly or secretly overpaid by RTE. This is not true. I was not overpaid by RTE at any point. I fully accept I am very, very well paid. I understand that. But I was fully paid in accordance with my contract, which my agent negotiated openly and honestly and in good faith. There are no overpayments. Now, there are RTE's under-declarations, which we challenged them on back in 2020. And there are indeed RTE's over-declarations, of which they actually paid me in 2020 and 2021. This has caused justifiable anger among my colleagues. I understand that. And we're going to deal with all of that in the next few hours, and indeed the next 6 hours or more. We'll stay for as long as it takes. The upshot of RTE's inaccurate declarations is an impression that I have been less than honest. This is not the case. The fourth untruth is that I was aware that RTE were trying to conceal payments to me. This is not true. I was not aware that RTE were concealing payments to me. RTE acknowledged this in their statement of June 22nd, 2023, when they stated that Grant Thornton had made no findings against me. The fifth untruth, there was a secret agreement with Renault that I tried to conceal. This is not true. But not only that, it beggars belief. Think about it. I had a separate commercial agreement with Renault, the basis of which was that I would make public appearances and perform road shows and things for them. And the work that I've done for Renault is all over social media. The suggestion that was a secret makes no sense. The sixth untruth, that RTE's underwriting of Renault's payment obligations was a secret. This is not true. RTE's underwriting of Renault's payment obligations was not a secret, as the documents we've prepared for you today show. And as my agent will explain in more detail, RTE committed in February 2020 to provide this guarantee in the early stages of contract negotiations around my 2020 to 25 contract. This is unequivocally confirmed in an email dated, critical document, 20th of February 2020, from Breda O'Keefe to my agent. It was copied to other members of the Executive Board, the Director General, the RTE Solicitor's Office, everyone in RTE who needed to know knew. You'll find this on page 10 of the booklet of documents you have in front of you. Far from being secret, it was well known. And finally, the seventh untruth, that I did not ask RTE about their under-declarations of my earnings. When they released the 2017, 18 and 19 earnings, as they did all in one day, January 20th, 2021, this is a question I did not ask at the time. This is a question I should have asked. I fully accept that. But I will try and explain briefly and as clearly as humanly possible. At the end of the 2015 to 20 contract, my agent advised me that I was entitled to a phenomenally large figure payment of €120,000 that has been variously called a loyalty or an end of contract or an exit payment. I did not invoice for that payment. I did not pursue that payment, and I did not receive any payment. The documents provided to you bear this out. In my simple view, I had foregone that payment for €120,000, not taken it. But because of how RTE reported that decision in their accounts, the narrative of the last 3 weeks has been that not only did I take this payment, but that I somehow contrived to hide it. So let me reiterate, I actually waived my entitlement to this payment and I didn't receive 1 cent of it. I hid nothing. I had nothing to hide. As the evidence provided to you today shows, my agent had already pointed out to RTE in 2020 that we thought the manner in which they were planning to account for my earnings in 2017, 18 and 19 was incorrect, and we had understood that they accepted our position, so that by the time they released the figures, I assumed that the Chief Financial Officer, the financial professionals in RTE, and the external auditors who had audited the accounts in these years, 17, 18, 19, had accountancy reasons for accounting for it the way they did. So I would like to add that my company earnings fully reflect what I earned in these and all subsequent years. I'm particularly upset and disappointed about the decision and framing of the RTE statement of June 22nd, which inextricably linked my name to this whole fiasco. My name was mentioned 15 times in that statement. 15 times. And I was not consulted once. I did not have the Grant Thornton report, which RTE had, and which RTE acknowledged made no findings of wrongdoing on my part. I asked RTE to clarify that this was the case. They did. 4 days. 4 days after much of the damage was done. Pretty much all of the damage was done. I signed a contract in good faith. I declared my earnings. I paid every cent of tax. My employer has acknowledged that. It has engaged in deceptive practices to pay me, practices that were hidden from me. The result, I'm nearly finished, forgive me for overgoing. The result of this is that I've become the face of a national scandal. I've been accused of being complicit, deceitful and dishonest. I think the statement of June the 22nd was very unhelpful in this regard. The full truth was concealed. I take full responsibility. I can't say it enough. I take full responsibility for not asking more questions back on January the 20th, 2021, when the figures for that 2017, 18 and 19 were released. I take responsibility for that. I understand. But as has become abundantly clear and obvious in the last 3 weeks, this highlights the existence of 2 RTEs. 2. There are those who are involved in attempting to conceal payments and who were in a position to call me or call my agent and ask for our help in establishing the full facts. Instead, they chose to hurriedly issue a deeply, deeply damaging statement on June 22nd, which failed to include the full facts. I have nothing but respect and admiration for that great number of decent, hard-working people in RTE, my colleagues, my friends. And I'm very sorry for those whose lives have been made difficult with an incessant dripping of new revelations. I'm thinking particularly of my radio show colleagues and friends, that they've had to be put through all of this for reasons not of their own making. They work hard. They all work hard in RT. And I want to thank those colleagues who have supported me through these last few weeks. And in closing, I'd like to thank the many people from across the country who've taken time to stop me on the street, decent Irish citizens, taking my shoulder and my elbow in their hands and saying, "You'll get through this." I have nearly a foot off the ground high of cards and letters from people who have written to Ryan Tubridy, Dublin, and I got them. Fair play to the post people in on Post, and I thank the Irish people for that. I am hopeful that they will see from my statement and my appearance here today that I am determined to inform them of the truth and to demonstrate that I have nothing to hide. And I'm also hopeful that I will soon get back on air to do the job I love. Thank you all for your patience.
Thank you, Mr. Tubridy. Mr. Kelly, now it's normally 5 minutes for opening statements, and we've gone 15 minutes into it. So I would ask you to, it's normally 5 minutes for them. So I would ask you to, to try and be as brief as you can with it, please. But we do want to give you the opportunity because we realise that you're here today to put it your side. So please cooperate.
I just want to echo everything Ryan says, and I'm sorry that we're here today as well. We asked to come and to meet the House because we have huge respect for it, and we haven't spoken to anybody else, and we just wanted to get the opportunity to put our side across. I'll try and be as brief as I possibly can, but if you'll allow me. So, Herlock and deputies, thank you for the opportunity to meet with you today. I hope this meeting will help to clarify the confusion which has arisen over the past few weeks. At the outset, I want to say that we appreciate the seriousness of all of these issues. The controversy over the past few weeks has been damaging to RTE, but it's also been hugely damaging to Ryan Tubridy, to myself and to my own business. Earlier today, we circulated a pack which we believe are the key documents that will help you understand this crisis. The document runs 39 pages and it includes relevant excerpts from Ryan's 2015 and 2020 contracts with RTE, extracts from the accounts of Ryan's company for the relevant years, various mails which track the back and forth of the negotiations for the 2020 RTE contract with Renault. We've made redactions where necessary, but we've been as transparent as possible to inform you with all the information at our disposal. I want to highlight a number of documents which will go to the heart of the issues. Let me start with Ryan's under-declaration of payments made to Ryan when they were published figures for 17, 18, 19 and in January 21. This issue has caused a lot of distress, and it's entirely a mess of RTE's own making. Ryan's contract from 2015, pages 1 to 4 of the pack, clearly states the fees he received in each of the following 5 years, and they're set out in clause 8.1 of the contract. It was 495, 495, 545, 545, 545 for the 5 years. He received those fees exactly, nothing more and nothing less. This is confirmed in the extracts from Ryan's filed accounts company Tuttle Productions, which we also include in the pack. We note that the accounts of Tuttle Productions run from January to December, whereas RTE's contract ran from September. In January 21, when RTE made its incorrect declarations, they knew what they had paid Ryan. Indeed, the Chief Financial Officer emailed us on the 19th of December 2019 on page 5 in the pack. She set out the actual earnings for each of the relevant years correctly. But just over a year later, in January 2021, RTE made false or incorrect declarations about the same figures. In some respects, this was an accident waiting to happen. We'd previously asked RTE to give us reasonable notice when they planned to publish figures. My email on the 16th of January 2020, page 6 of the pact, specifically requests this. If they'd done that, we would have had time to check the figures and avoid errors. However, RTE ignored our request for reasons I still don't understand. In March 2020, we saw the first sign that RTE, with all its accountants, auditors, might be struggling to understand the correct accounting treatment for what they paid Ryan in 2017, 2018 and 2019. That month they sent us a letter about exit fee bonus Ryan was due as part of his 2015 contract. It was agreed that Ryan was not going to raise an invoice for this, and they wanted to agree how to explain it. But in the draft which was sent to us, they proposed to change the payments which they made to Ryan already, effectively lowering them by €120,000. Their logic was that they could offset $120,000 we had agreed not to ask for in 2020 against payments which had already been made to Ryan for 17, 18 and 19. We argued against this, and they accepted our points at the time. This is clear from the document, pages 14 to 16 of our pack. For some reason, however, it looks like the confused thinking returned, and they published again the wrong figures in January 2021, effectively causing his reputation damage to Ryan in the process. Huge reputational damage, sorry. One important point I should add. Just last month, on the 23rd of June, RTE published new figures. Effectively, they restated figures for payments to Ryan for 17, 18 and 19 and added in declarations for figures paid to him in 20 and 21. Bizarrely, the figures they declare for both 20 and 21 are wrong. In both years, they overstate the amount they paid Ryan, and we addressed this issue on page 28 and 29 of the pack. For 2020, they overstated earnings of 62,536. For 21, they overstated 83,381. So clearly, RTE is still struggling with these declarations. Now let's turn to the Renault contract, which ran parallel to the 2020 contract which Ryan had with RTE. I refer you to page 5 of the pack. This is an email sent to NK Management on the 19th of December 2019 from RTE's then Chief Financial Officer, Ms. Breda O'Keefe. This email sets out RTE's starting position for negotiations on the 2020 contract. You will see that this email is where the idea of a commercial sponsorship with a third party with an annual fee of €75,000 is first suggested. This comes from RTE. This did not strike us as unusual, as Renault was a key sponsor for RTE, so it was understandable that they would try to wish to ensure that all parties were aligned. Next, we come to RTE's decision to underwrite this Renault contract. This is perhaps the most shocking revelation of this morning. Since this controversy began, RTE tried to distance themselves from this decision. Effectively, they have blamed the former Director General, D. Forbes, for doing a solo run and giving a verbal commitment to underwrite the contract on a Zoom call in May. RTE executives had said how there was a strong pushback against the idea of underwriting the agreement. That is incorrect. I refer you to page 10 of the pack. So at the time, Ms. Breda O'Keefe was Chief Financial Officer of RTE. On this page, you will see an email which she sent to my office dated the 20th of February 2020. It is copied to another member of the Executive Board, the then Director General and RTE's solicitor. In this email, Ms. Breda O'Keefe responds in red to various points which had been discussed. She states at the top of the email that this is our final position. Because negotiations go back and forth, this is our final position in respect of the new contract. On the last paragraph on this page, Ms. O'Keefe, on behalf of RTE, states explicitly, we can provide you with a side letter to underwrite this fee for the duration of the contract. There was no secret. There is no secret. There was no secret. To our surprise, Ms. O'Keefe told the committee last week, when she left RTE in March, that there was no support to provide that type of guarantee, and no such guarantee was on offer, but she had written to us making exactly that offer a month earlier. Last week, nobody from RTE here with Ms. O'Keefe challenged her when she said that. And we were surprised too, because on the 30th of June, 4 days before she appeared at the media committee, we wrote to RTE and highlighted the significance of Ms. O'Keefe's email. Her email also casts a new light on the contribution of Adrian Lynch, Deputy Director General, to this committee. Mr. Lynch told the committee that agreement was to give underwrite the contract was given verbally on a Zoom call with NK Management on the 7th of May by the then Director General, and he described this as a significant point at the centre of this. RTE had tried to portray the guarantee as the decision given late in the negotiations on a Zoom call by D. Forbes without the awareness of the Executive Board. Clearly, this is not correct. The decision was taken early by RTE and known widely within the Executive Board and RTE. So let me move to the invoicing arrangements for Renault contract. Our document pack shows that RTE did not just suggest the idea of the contract with Renault, it oversaw every development and implementation of same. We were happy with that. We knew Renault was a major sponsor for RTE, so RTE would be committed to keeping them happy. We knew the contract with Renault was a separate contract from Ryan's independent contractor services Ryan had for RTE for radio and TV work. We understood that Ryan would have to do extra work for Renault, but that was no difference to the other work that Ryan would do for the BBC or with his publishers, etc. This was just a separate commercial agreement. Ryan was agreeing to a substantial pay cut from RTE, and he was entitled to seek other work outside of RTE. There was nothing secret about this. Nothing secret about this. Far from it. The contract required Ryan to do public appearances for Renault, which they could seek and expect attention, and indeed they did. So with the terms agreed, RTE instructed us how to invoice for this work. For the first invoice, they instructed us to raise an invoice directly with Renault, and they gave us names and details set on the proposed narrative for the invoice. As you can see, the instructions RTE gave us for this is an email on the 24th of July 2020, page 23 in this pack, and on page 24 you can see the invoice we did indeed send to Renault. When it came to invoices for 2 and 3, RTE gave us new instructions. I refer to page 25 of the pack. This is an email from the then Commercial Director, Geraldine O'Leary, dated the 29th of April 2022. This invoice passed on instructions as for how invoices 2 and 3 should be raised, and the email instructs us on the company name to be put on the invoice, Astus, the address to be put on the invoice, the VAT reference to be included in the invoice, and it instructs us not to put any person's name on it. This email also gave us general insurance from a colleague of Mr. Leary's that said, if he, meaning NK Management, sends it back to me, I will sort everything else out. You should know that while invoices were made dead to Astus, we were directed to email them to RTE. They would do what was necessary to process them with Astus. I should stress that at this time, we in NK Management had no idea who Astus was. We had no reason to think that Astus was linked to RTE or that it was acting on behalf of RTE. We had no idea they might be making payments to us on behalf of RTE, or that the payments were linked to RTE underwriting the Renault contract. RTE never said that to us. Astus never said that to us. And Renault never said that to us. We simply followed instructions we were given, as we had with the first invoice. You will see a copy of the 2 invoices raised in the name VAS has been sent by email from us to RTE in the pack, pages 26-27. People have asked us why we went along with those instructions, why we didn't set out more detail about what the invoice is related to. But at the time, we had no reason to suspect that RTE might be trying to hide payments to Ryan, and I'm still shocked that that was their intention. We trusted RTE. It's not some unknown startup with opaque funding and checkered past, or a record for dodgy financial dealings. It's a national institution, 100 years old, massive business, turning over 350 million a year. It has internal and external auditors. It has a heavyweight board, teams of financial advisors, accountants. As Mr. Backhurst said yesterday, RTE has robust processes and rigorous oversight of financial in many parts of the organisation. And that is what we assumed too. Why would we suspect that they were hiding information about one of their key contracts? Why would they even do that? Why would they even do that? We're nearing the end, and I'm sorry, but it's important. But I want to address one other thing. There's been a lot of coverage of a side letter with the 2020 contract in which the Director General says the agreed earnings in the contract won't be reduced during the term of the contract. As any lawyer will confirm, this letter had no practical impact. The contract itself guarantees the earnings, and that is what a contract does. We were simply trying to impress on RTE that Ryan had just signed up to new cuts in his 2020 contract of 525,000, and had also never taken the payment of 120,000. So they shouldn't even think about coming back for more cuts given the size of those cuts. And to conclude, ladies and gentlemen, for the past number of years, Ryan has continued to perform at the highest level, working with millions of colleagues and leading shows which bring in, over the 6-year period, 100 million in revenue to RTE. He raises tens of millions for charities through the toy show, various appeals. We've heard a lot about RTE's public service ethos, a lot about their public service ethos, but let's call a spade a spade. RTE is a hybrid organisation. Its commercial activities are key to keeping the station afloat, maintaining jobs and creating content. Ryan Tubridy has been a huge driver for RTE's most successful commercial activities over the past 14 years. Ryan and I have attracted, and our families and our friends, a horrendous amount of criticism and abuse in the past few weeks, and I would not wish it on anybody. Why? Because the only figure in this whole story whose face was recognisable was Ryan Tubridy. He's been made a poster boy for this scandal, and that's undeserved. This is not the Ryan Tubridy scandal. This is the RTE scandal. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for those opening statements. Just before we move to the committee members, there's one issue, Mr. Tubridy, you might clarify for me. The issue of the 75,000 payments, obviously the invoices for that was what brought this to light in March when the auditors found them. And when I first heard about this, and I wanted to ask you this morning, just to set the scene for this meeting, that that 75,000 shortfall gap that had to be made up, call it what you like, additional payment, the country was shut down. Yes. Thousands of my constituents and people around the country were on €200 or €300 a week pandemic payment. And you and your agent, between you, did you have any doubts about the merits of that or the credibility of looking, to make up that 75,000 at that particular point? Because you're on the Late Late Show and provided a good service, and I watched it because, it was good viewing right through COVID, and to acknowledge that the performances were great given the circumstances. But did you have any doubts about, the credibility or the merits of that, of looking for that and your own credibility?
I appreciate the question and the kind words.
Short answers, because
I'll keep them short. I think what I'm going to be saying a lot today,
which is in relation to that.
In relation to that is that my agent and friend Noel Kelly, it's his job to get the best deal as he sees it for his client and clients.
On your instructions, Mr. Tubridy.
Well, you could say that, yeah,
yes,
of course.
I mean,
he would absolutely try and get what he considers to be the best deal.
Did you have any doubts in those discussions that you had between you back in the earlier part of 2020?
I think it would be fair to say
about the merits of it.
In terms of the financial implications of the commercial side of RTE, that it probably felt it wasn't problematic in that sense.
That's not what I'm asking you. Did you have doubts about the public optics of this and the possible reputational damage of looking for that 75,000 in those circumstances? Yes or no? And did you discuss that, the merits of that? That's all I want to know.
I would say that I would always have doubts about doing too much.
And did you discuss that with your agent?
Do we have a conversation about that? That's unlikely.
No, I'd say. So you're telling me here this morning that you had no conversation with NK Communications regarding the matter of looking for this gap of 75,000?
No, we wouldn't. We would be inclined to just. To be honest with you, Ciara, I say to Noel, I say you do your job and I do mine, and that's how it works.
But you knew that this gap had to be made up, and this 75,000 had to be magicked up somewhere or another, for want of a better term.
I trust in the process.
Yes, but so you've clarified that you had no doubts about the merits, the credibility, or the possible reputational damage. That wasn't discussed.
That was not discussed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Deputy Imelda Munster, 15 minutes.
Good morning to our guests, or witnesses rather. I just want to start off with the tripartite agreement, Mr. Kelly. Just in relation to that, can you, and I'd ask you to keep your answers as short as possible, can you tell us briefly how did that actually come about? What was the reason for it?
I'll just refer to some of my notes if you don't mind. How it came about, it was an RTE initiative. RTE, Renault's obviously...
But, yeah, OK, sorry, just for a second. It was an RTE initiative, but it had to stem from somewhere. You said in your opening statement that Ryan was agreeing to a substantial pay cut from RTE. So did it come about on the basis of you negotiating with RTE?
No, it had
right,
no...
So how did it come about?
No relation. Ryan's contract is for 205 radio shows, and it's for 38 two-hour TV shows. This was a totally separate agreement, and it came about because Renault and RTE wanted Ryan to do more work around the sponsorship, wanted him to do late shows and dealers, etc. So that's where it came from.
So you're seriously saying that it didn't come about at all from the pay cuts that Ryan was going to take? It wasn't a way of topping up the salary?
The sponsor wanted us to do activity to embellish the sponsorship around the dealers.
But why would RTE, of their own bat, be concerned about setting your client up with a commercial deal? Why would they suddenly, when at a time when everybody else was asked to take pay cuts, why would RTE, and who in RTE came to you and said, listen, we want to look after Ryan, we want to set up a separate commercial deal? Can you honestly say that you did not initiate that in any shape or form with RTE?
Whatsoever.
Right, so tell us then, who in RTE came to you and what did they say?
If I refer to page 5 of the pack, under the contract, the proposed terms of the new contract, this came from Breed O'Keefe and was copied to other people as well. So they wanted Ryan, and Renault had wanted Ryan to go to the dealers, to meet all of their customers. The relationship with the sponsor is with RTE. We have nothing to do with that. We don't work with Renault. So the relationship is with RTE, and the relationship is it's probably the biggest sponsorship.
So RTE contacted you and said, listen, we're a little bit concerned. Ryan is taking a pay cut. We want to set up a separate deal.
This is nothing about pay cuts. This is nothing about. Okay. This was a separate commercial deal. Who
came to you? Was it the Director General came to you?
No, Breed O'Keefe.
Breed O'Keefe came to see. In page 9 of your documents, the pack that you gave us, it says we would also need, and this came from yourself, I think, we would also need a side letter agreement from RTE to guarantee and underwrite this fee for the duration of the contract and beyond into the next contract. So you sought a guarantee for a deal that you'd nothing really to do with as such.
Why I was looking for a guarantee is quite simple. It was never for RTE to pay it. It was that if the sponsor changes, so we have a 5-year contract with RTE for 205 radio shows and
we know that
2-hour TV shows.
Sorry, time is of the essence. But you sought the guarantee that RTE would pay if the deal went belly up.
It was never for RTE to pay. The guarantee was around if another sponsor came in, that they would have. Again, the relationship is with RTE and the sponsor, not with us. So they'd have to talk to the sponsor, say, do you want him? Would you like him to do? The sponsor obviously wants to have the host perform different duties for them.
So you didn't agree with RTE underwriting the deal?
It wasn't about underwriting. It was about a sponsor change. It was actually what it was about.
At this stage, the sponsors were gone. And you said it was never about. No, Reynolds, I'm talking about the tripart. I'm talking about years 2 and 3 as well, right?
Yes.
Not only did RTE underwrite the Reynolds contract, but there was an agreement there to underwrite the 2. And you were looking for a side letter agreement from RTE to guarantee and underwrite this for the duration of this contract and beyond into the next contract. So you clearly there said, page 9 of your documents, you wanted RTE to underwrite. And in response to you, Breda O'Keefe, I think it's her email on page 10 of your pack, she said on behalf of RTE, states explicitly that we can provide you with a side letter to underwrite this fee for duration of contract. Right? So you'd requested that they underwrite it, and she, in that email in page 10 of the pack, was responding to your request. That's correct?
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
So what?
So, I mean, there's one thing about, and you said that Ryan was agreeing to a substantial pay cut and he was entitled to seek work elsewhere, and that's absolutely fine. Nobody has an issue with this. But the problem here is that the deal was underwritten at your request for the 3 years, at your request, by the public purse.
No.
That's the problem here.
Okay.
The deal was underwritten at your request for the 3 years of the contract, and it was paid for by public monies. That's the issue.
I asked for the deal to be underwritten because the relationship with the sponsor is with RTE. It's not
Yeah,
with us.
underwritten by who? RTE.
Yeah.
Yeah, the public purse. Yeah.
But it's actually about the sponsorship. In relation to
requested
this was
it
a
to be
commercial.
underwritten by RTE, and that could only mean that RTE take the hit for it and they pony up. I just want to move on because time is of the essence. You refer to page 25 in the packets, page 6 in your statement. There was an email from the commercial director for the 2x3 invoices for 75, and it was should be raised, and there was an instruction not to put any person's name on it. And you said there was no secret about this deal, but you agreed to not putting a name on that. I mean, I presume you'll agree that there was no consultancy fees, that there was no consultancy done for 75,000 for yourself.
What? No. What we did was act on, at all times, instructions from RTE. And as I've said, RTE is a 100-year-old organisation with auditors, accountants.
Yeah. But you're also a businessman, you're a negotiator.
We trust the process. Why would you not trust the process?
You're a businessman, you're a negotiator, you look after your clients. That's your job. That's your job. There's no issue with that whatsoever. But you'd imagine when you were instructed not to put names on the invoices, and we're not talking about €2.99 or €3.50, we're talking about invoices for 75,000, and you knowing that you had asked them to underwrite the agreement. So you had asked them that they underwrite, they confirmed that they were underwriting the agreement, they were putting it through the barter account, you were told not to put a name on it, you knew exactly what it was for, and you didn't flag that up, you went along with it, and yet you say there was nothing secret about the deal.
There was nothing secret. We simply acted under instructions from RTE. Yeah.
But you knew they were underwriting the deal, and you knew that was the 75,000 payment that was due to Mr. Tubridy. We
simply acted under instructions from RTE.
So that's, fair enough. We had heard last week that the auditors weren't happy that Grant Thornton were brought in, and that at some point you were informed of it. When was that? And was it the Director General that informed you, or who and when?
That was May. That was May 23rd of this year.
May 23rd.
And that would have been from RTE's legal office.
Their legal office, which would have been who exactly?
From somebody from RTE's legal office.
Sorry?
26.
Yeah.
26th of May.
Thank you.
Okay.
So that was from Paula Malooly, Director of Legal Affairs, and that was the 26th of May 2023.
Okay, and so RTE knew, Grant Thornton knew, you knew. Did you tell your client about it?
Yes, we would have informed our client, of course, but that was the first that we had heard.
That was the 26th of May. Yeah. I just want to come to Mr. Tubridy, if I can, please. And there's just, in 2019, you might have seen this out in the public domain recently, that you were launching the St Vincent de Paul Christmas appeal, and when you were interviewed, you were said that you were haunted by the idea of children in poverty and the homeless crisis, and you also said that you'd accept RTE's cost-cutting measures gracefully, and when it comes to this sort of issue, that's not something you've ever been found wanting on. But here we are 3 or 4 years later, and we know that that pay cut was subsidised by this deal.
Yeah, I wouldn't characterise that as a pay cut being subsidised by any deal. I also.
But that's what it looks
I would also,
like.
with respect, Deputy, I would also urge you not to conflate somebody being well paid with somebody who might not have a conscience. particularly with the work that you mentioned, St. Vincent de Paul. It's a charity I have enormous time for since I was a child.
I'm sure, in fairness, I'm sure, sorry, just 1 second,
we're
asking questions.
I appreciate that, but I just think it's under the circumstances. I would not like to sully the work that those people do around the country.
There's nobody mentioned the work that those people do. I'm referring to what you stated, what you quoted in the media.
Yes.
Right, that's what I'm referring
to. Okay, I'm sorry. I apologise.
And I accept that you do a lot of charity work.
No, I'm not trying to say that.
There's nobody saying anything otherwise.
Sorry, Deputy. I appreciate that. Yes, I understand.
You do that good work. But at the same time, you knew that this separate deal was being done and it would compensate for the pay cuts. But you also knew, and this is the thing, that your agent had requested that RTE underwrite that agreement.
Well,
so you knew. Sorry, I'll just get to the question. So you knew that that pay deal was going to make softer, or not even enhance any pay cut that had been taken. But you also knew through your agent that RTE were underwriting that deal, so that you knew that when your colleagues...
There's a misunderstanding here, honestly.
This was a separate contract.
No, I'm not talking about the Reynolds.
This is a separate contract for
separate
services.
Sorry.
A separate
I'm talking about the tripart.
Just allow Mr. Kelly to answer briefly.
This was a separate contract for separate services. This had nothing to do with Ryan's new contract for radio and TV service. This is a separate contract.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. The tripartite deal.
Yeah.
Where the two...
With RTE and Renault, the sponsor,
where
and
RTE had underwritten that agreement, right?
Yes.
And they were paying it. And my question to Mr. Tubridy
No, Renault were paying it.
Sorry?
Renault were paying it.
Renault, but RTE paid them. And then the 275 payments.
But if RTE paid them, that was an RTE thing.
Yeah.
Renault paid.
Yeah, but
and if RTE paid them, that has absolutely nothing to do with us. We don't work for. I don't work for RTE.
No,
we don't work for RTE. So no, just I know you're trying to clarify. Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm talking about the two. We've just discussed it, so there's no way you don't know about it. The two €75,000 payments that were put through, that you were asked not to put any person's name on. They were underwritten, as you said, at your request.
Is the question being directed to Mr. Tubridy?
Mr. Tubridy,
yes. Mr. Kelly, please don't interrupt.
Sorry,
Mr. Tubridy.
I think that the reason, sorry, Deputy, to clarify, the reason Noel is coming in on this is because his knowledge of the nuts and bolts of these things is far superior to mine. So I'm not being disrespectful to you by not answering. So
and likewise, but I'm asking you again in relation to that, when and you did say that it haunts you and child poverty and that, and that's perfectly understandable, and of course you do.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, where does that tally with the fact that you knew that the two payments that were going through for 75,000, the tripart agreement was struck, right?
Yes.
You knew that they were for yourself as part of that tripart agreement, but you would have also known that RTE had agreed to underwrite that agreement. So in fact, it was the taxpayers, it was the licence fee holders that were paying that money.
As I understand it, there was a relationship with Renault that would sort that out.
No, the second and third one we're talking about.
Yeah. But am I not right in saying that the second and third one? There seems to be a misunderstanding.
No, there's no absolute... We've sat through 3 weeks of it, in all fairness, Mr. Tubridy. There's no misunderstanding from our...
Well, I'm misunderstanding, obviously. I apologise.
There's no misunderstanding. I'm talking about the 275. Look, if you prefer not to answer, that's fine. If you don't want to answer...
No, I'm happy to answer. I just feel that I was always under the impression that money was from Renault, wasn't it? Yes.
You received 345,000 extra in payments.
Now,
was underwritten by RTE, so the taxpayer.
I really dispute that.
Okay, so we're going to move on because we just have to give movement because we have full attendance here. Deputy Mark Cossey, 10 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you to the witnesses for attending and for your opening statements. I know, Mr. Tubridy, you're fond of a small quirky fact that tells a story. And I'm sure as well, 79% of us listen to radio daily here in Ireland, despite everything else that's open to us, from Spotify to podcasts to everything else. We're like most people, we're big radio listeners in our house, and you were in our kitchen 5 mornings a week. And I think that's the thing. I think you were that familiar voice in our kitchen you know, when you told us we're all in it together during COVID in particular and during the recessions, we believed you. And I think that's why we feel so shattered by this story. Now, you've set out a very strong rebuttal here. It's clear that RTE, when they appear before us again on Thursday, are going to have a very serious set of questions that they have to answer. But the fact remains, public trust in our public broadcaster and in you, for right or for wrong, has been shattered. And that has to be rebuilt. And maybe today is the start, and we'll see. I wanted to ask you just a very quick question. Did you engage the services, did the three of you engage the service of crisis comms team before appearing today, either internal or external?
We did assemble a team of people to talk with and to get the best advice. I was always told that by relative minds. Always surround yourself with people smarter than you. So yeah, of course, I spoke to people. Yeah, were people in pay in order to offer crisis comms advice, either internal or external? I presume they weren't doing it for free, of course. Okay, I'm going to take that as a yes. I hope the answer to this is no, but were you advised by those people to delay the documentation until half 8 this morning? No. The documentation, and I am, my apologies for that. I think it's a very comprehensive set of documentation. It sheds a lot of light. Do you want me to come back on things? But it was to receive it at half 8. Yeah. And I think particularly of the staff who support this committee, who stayed up until very late last night. My apologies. Got up very early this morning. Do you want me to come back on that, or would you rather keep going? Okay, I'll try. The last 3 weeks have been chaotic. They have been destructive. They have been beyond difficult. And all I'll say to you is that we wanted to get things right today because so many people have been getting things wrong. Okay, I fully accept. I don't want to interrupt, but I have one night. We were working on this till burning the midnight oil. So, yeah. I just want to examine one thing that's in your opening statement this morning. You state clearly that you took a 20% pay cut. Is that inclusive or exclusive of the €75,000 that you were receiving either from Renault or through RTE through a barter account? When you say you took a 20% pay cut, is that inclusive or exclusive of the 75,000?
No, I'll take that. If I can answer that, thank you. The 20% was, Ryan's contract was 495, 495, 545, 545, 545. That was
this 20% refers to the payment direct from RTE.
I'll explain the percentage. So that was from 15 to 19, and in Ryan's then next contract, his salary was 440,000 per annum, which was 200,000 for radio, 240,000 for TV. That was 105,000 reduction per year by 5, so that was 525,000. It didn't include the 120,000 that he didn't take, and the Renault 75,000 was a completely separate contract. So this was on his TV and radio earnings.
So it's exclusive of the Renault contract or the payment through RTE by barter account.
Yeah.
Now, I just have to contest that we regard this as separate. Now, the email over and back that we see in the contract negotiations are shocking to, I think, all of the members for a number of reasons. One being the number of people who are actually included, and you've drawn attention to that.
Yes.
But it also points very clearly to the fact that actually it's not separate. It is part of the RTE contracting.
No, it's not part of the RTE contract.
I mean, if it was entirely separate, then why would RTE be involved in this at all?
RTE came to us with this. Like, at all times, everything to do with this contract was under instruction from RTE, but it was the contract and the payments were with Renault, the sponsor. And Renault is still the sponsor of the Late Late Show.
Okay. I asked the question, Mr. Tubridy, and it was in your opening statement. So that's exclusive of the 75,000. Would you accept that it's difficult for us to reconcile the idea that this was an entirely separate arrangement when it formed part of the contract negotiation?
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from entirely, but yeah, okay, I understand the room for perception issues, yes.
Okay. Mr. Kelly, I just want to move on to your part in this. I want to ask briefly, because I think it's important that we put to bed the idea that Mr. Tubridy made any decision around the late on foot off. Sure. We know that the two problematic invoices were presented to D Forbes on the 8th of March. We know that Mr. Tubridy announced his decision, whenever he took his decision, he announced it on the 16th of March. Would you have D Forbes' number in your phone?
No.
No.
If I can explain, I've met D Forbes, I would say, and this is like But there's so many untruths and so many stuff. I'm finding it bizarre. So I've only ever met Dee Forbes with her legal team and with her lawyers in their office in RTE. I have never had a cup of tea with Dee Forbes. I've never met Dee Forbes for lunch. I've never met her for dinner. I don't know Dee Forbes apart from when I meet her in the RTE.
I'm so sorry, and we're so time compressed
Deputy,
here.
I think if you have a question with regard to the departure of the Late Late Show, that was so deeply personal and so deeply from my heart, I would urge you to ask me about that.
I want to ask a very simple question, and it sounds like you'll welcome the opportunity. Was there any communication to either yourselves, Mr. Tubridy, or to Noel Kelly management between the 8th and the 16th of March with regard to these problematic invoices?
No.
Not remotely.
That's fine.
The first indication was on the 23rd of May.
Well, now, I do want to contest that, because on the 3rd of May, there is an over and back, the 3rd and the 5th of May.
Sorry.
Between Paul and Malooly and
Grant Thornton. Sorry.
NK Management, where specific reference is made to the CMS invoices.
Yes,
and I do
sorry.
want to ask about the decision to use CMS. So I do want to contest that, because there's certainly an over and back between Noel Kelly Management
on the 3rd of May,
and Paul and Malooly.
There's just a lot of emails. On the 3rd of May was the first time that we were made aware of it. And then after that, we met with Grant Thornton to talk to them about it. Okay. So in relation to Ryan stepping down or stepping back, Ryan had said it to me the previous year, and I said to him, why are you leaving?
Yeah.
And he
And
just
so,
said,
so did my family. They thought I was mad.
and to be honest with you, a very good friend of ours, when Ryan, I said, Ryan, why are you leaving? Stay on the Late Late. It's a brilliant, it's a great show, you know. And I knew after COVID, when you're playing to no audience, when you're, that it was a really difficult show to do. And when he said
Mr. Kelly, I'm so sorry to be interrupting, and I don't want to come across as hectoring, but
I know,
I have 2 minutes remaining and a list of questions as long as
anyway, we'd been aware of this for quite a while, and I was trying to get him to stay.
Okay. I want to ask you about this, so this invoicing of Astus. And I do notice in the accounts that are returned at the end of the year that money transferred to Tuttle Productions is, you can see it essentially. In a normal run of a year, the amount of money deriving from Noel Kelly Management is quite small. In the years in question, it's large. You can see the 75,000 in it. You have, I think, 4 companies which are registered out of Unit B2 in the Calmont Office Park in Ballymount. So Noel Kelly Management, Noel Kelly Management Nominees Limited, which is registered 16th March this year, Century Merchandising Services, Cleary Consultancy Limited. Why was it CMS that decided to raise the invoice?
Because I have 2 companies, which is NK Management and CMS, and we were asked to send the invoice in from CMS by RTE.
Why CMS?
That was their instructions. Well, see, they would.
It's Noel Kelly Management that appears at the end of year.
Sure. But CMS is we own CMS as well. It's a sister company.
And you, no explanation for why Noel Kelly Management above CMS. It just adds a layer of opacity.
Sure.
Because Noel Kelly Management, I know who that is. CMS, I don't.
Yeah. Again, we were directed by RTE.
With this direction from RTE, we've all received emails in saying, you know, just all you have to do is invoice a certain company in wherever, and all of this money will be yours. This idea of invoice for 75,000 to a company you say you don't know, you've never come across, you've no reason to suspect RTE are hiding payments, but they said, can you invoice this company in order to receive a payment? And you didn't say, I'm sorry, but who is this company and why am I invoicing them?
Sure. RTE, it has its say 1,800 employees, turns over 350 million a year. We're a small little company. There's 8 of us. Small company.
I mean, the context of this is that you have been upset with the reporting of earnings beforehand.
We were asked under instruction to do this, and that's what we did.
Briefly, am I allowed?
Just very briefly.
Just to the Deputy, regarding your listening to my radio show during the week.
My missus, unfortunately, I'm up here. But
sorry, you're
my missus listens
your wife,
regularly.
Sorry, or your partner. Well, thank you for that, and I'm sorry to hear that that she feels that way about the programme, but I can assure you this is what today is all about, is rebuilding that trust that may have been undermined by a lot of misunderstanding.
Thank you very much, and thank you both for coming in here voluntarily. Very much appreciated. Can I just follow up on my colleague there? Century Merchandising Services Limited is CMS and
Yes.
No. But when I've done my company office searches, I found all the CMS companies have been struck off. So I'm a bit concerned about you using that when the company's office showed that all the CMS companies have been struck off the register. So it's trading under Century Merchandising Services Limited, not CMS.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
CMS is just the
I know, but it's just from the clarification point of view, and that CMS, all the companies that are registered under that name have been struck off for various reasons. Can I just ask a question in relation to the contracts? The contracts between RT and Tuttle Productions Limited, that's the agreement, the 5-year agreement.
Yes.
But the agreement then between, which is drafted up by yourselves, is between Renault Ireland Limited, RT and Ryan Tubridy. It's not between Tuttle Productions Limited. Is there a reason for that?
So the Renault contracts, on page 5.
I have a copy of the agreement here,
sure.
And it shows this is the agreement that was prepared in relation to the agreement between the three organisations.
Yes.
But it's not with Tuttle Productions.
So the agreement was written by RTE Legal.
No, this is the one that I've got, which is in...
Oh, sorry, for the services, yeah. So with the services, we had numerous meetings with Renault in relation to the actual activity itself. And I think part of the confusion is the events were for 2021-22.
But the agreement is in a separate legal entity to the agreement between Tuttle Productions Limited and
RTE. Yes,
this agreement is between Ryan Tubridy, Renault, and RTE.
Sure. Well,
so
Ryan
different legal entities.
Ryan Tubridy being Tuttle.
Okay, but can I just ask then, in relation to 75,000, does that go into the Tuttle Productions account?
Yes.
Okay, because the invoice then, the invoice that was produced, which I think you...
No, well, we'd invoice it, and then
but the invoice doesn't mention Tuttle Productions in the invoice that you produced. It mentions Ryan Tubridy. It doesn't mention Tuttle. It doesn't mention Tuttle at all. That's on page 24.
So, absolutely, sorry, page 24. So, we were directed again by RT Legal to put down Ryan Tubridy bespoke partnership between Renault Ireland and Ryan Tubridy included personal appearances and programme of activity.
But if the agreement is ongoing with Tuttle Productions, why then send out the invoice in a person's name rather than
the agreement is with Renault, RTE, the invoicing, and obviously Ryan is the service provider. We invoice on behalf of Ryan, and then...
I know, but from a legal point of view, what I'm saying to you is that there seems to be two different legal entities, one Tuttle Productions, the other one Ryan Tubridy.
No, there's Ryan.
But the agreements show that.
So no, that's the Renault and the Ryan Tubridy invoice. There's only Tuttle Productions, which is Ryan Tubridy's company.
Okay, all right. Can I then go on to, in relation to the invoices itself, when you saw that you were making out to an English company or a company based in the UK, did you not raise serious concerns on this issue? Because obviously, if it's made out to a UK company, you're then not putting in for VAT or anything else, yet the service was delivered in Ireland.
We, again, under instruction from RTE, we...
Well, no, but I mean, in fairness, you're a separate legal entity to RTE.
But sorry,
should you not have asked further questions on that?
We sent the invoices into RTE.
Yeah, but when you were asked to send in the invoices, you were asked to make out the invoices. When you were asked to make them out for a UK company, did it not raise concerns from your point of view as regards, to make sure that you were not doing anything which was, where the service, in particular, where the service was delivered here in Ireland, the service wasn't delivered in the UK.
Sure.
It was delivered to RT to Renault.
Yeah.
And not to a UK company.
Well, we knew that the contract was with Renault and it was a separate contract for independent contractor services. Ryan had to do the work with RTE. Okay. And we understood that Ryan would have to do extra work with Renault, but there was no difference.
Sorry, that's not the question. You're going completely off the question that the Deputy is trying to ask you. Deputy, just put that question straight again, because it's a very direct question.
The direct question is, when the invoice was made out, it was made out to a UK company. What I'm saying is that the service was delivered in Ireland for Irish companies, basically RTE and Renault, who are here in Ireland. Did that not raise concerns, which you, from an accounting point of view yourselves, that you were being asked now to bill a UK company? You say in your statement that you knew nothing about the barter account. You never dealt with a barter account before. This is the first time dealing with it. Did you not raise questions as to why you should make it out to a UK company?
Okay, well, if I could just, in relation to that, at the time we didn't know who Assus was.
Wasn't that more reason for raising the question?
No,
if you didn't know about it.
But we presumed that they had a relationship with Renault, and we followed the instructions exactly, and subsequently got paid.
Did you raise that question with Renault to know was this the reason why? Was this the connection, rather than sending it in? Remember, it was RT were giving you the instructions, not Renault. Therefore, should you not have raised that question?
Well, we didn't raise the question. We didn't raise the question because it was under instruction from RTE.
Okay, can I just ask in relation to page in the Grant Thornton report, paragraph 22G, it raises the fact about that the Director General was not involved in dealing, signing or implementation of this agreement, being the tripartite agreement. Was there? Because this seems to be, we're being furnished certain names, but we're not being given all the names. And I'm just wondering, who exactly was there that knew about all of this agreement?
Sorry, so...
Okay, you were involved there, but who from RT was there that was involved in this agreement?
So, from legal, Trish Whelan; from finance, Breed O'Keefe; the CEO, D. Forbes; and then somebody on the exec.
The Grant Thornton report says the Director General was not involved in the drafting, signing or implementation of this agreement.
Oh, sorry, the drafting, signing and implementation would have been legal and finance and commercial.
But can you tell us who was there from legal, financial and commercial?
Joe. Okay. Sorry, it was the RT Solicitor's Office.
But no, but you're saying the commercial people were there as well, but who we need to know who exactly was there, because this information has not been given to us. Your office, you were there, or someone from your office was there?
Page 14 in the documents. So you had myself, Niamh, Breed O'Keefe and Katrina Faulkner from the RT Solicitor's Office.
Sorry, who? My apologies.
Sorry, Katrina Faulkner.
From the Solicitor's Office?
From RT's office, yes.
And was there anyone else there?
Trish Whelan from the Solicitor's Office as well.
Okay, all right, okay. Can I just move on there to Ryan Tubridy, yourself, Mr. Tubridy? Can I just ask, this whole issue, and my colleague raised it about, the level of fees. And I think when I looked at your accounts, it was in 2016, the income through the accounts was 660,000, and I accept that there has been a reduction in what you're receiving. But all of this controversy, there's now a whole problem within, I suppose, the entire country, but also within RT about the whole issue of trust, the whole issue of the ethics of this. I mean, looking at it now, how do you feel that the trust can be built back up? And the second thing is about your own preference at this stage about going back working for RT.
Yeah.
What's your own...
Oh, I don't have any doubt. I want to go back to work on the radio as soon as possible. I think that I don't say that with any arrogance. I just say that I express desire. It's what I do. It's what I know, and I want to get back to my team and to the listeners and do my job, because it's all I've got.
The whole issue in relation to trust.
No, I understand that, Deputy, and I will say that I understand the amount of money we're talking about is eye-watering. I'm not a fool. I understand that. But I haven't changed as a person over those years, despite the extraordinary bank balance.
The question I'm asking you is, how do you now rebuild that trust?
Well, a lot of the trust was taken from me.
But
How do we now rebuild the trust?
I would say, trust if you go back into RT. Secondly, the trust in
I would say, Deputy,
the trust in RT itself.
Yeah, I would say.
Thirdly, believing as regards building the trust with your own colleagues.
Brief answer.
I will just say I think that they're off to a good start this week with the new Director General. I think that they're going to be. I think that hopefully people will see what I've said today and will hear what I'm saying today, and they'll realise that a lot of what's happened over the last 3 weeks, I've been dragged into a mess not of my own making.
With your colleagues?
Deputy Devlin.
With my colleagues, the only thing I have for my colleagues is respect.
Deputy Devlin.
And thank you very much to our witnesses for your attendance this morning. And can I say at the outset, such is the issue surrounding this, that you're right about people stopping you. Obviously, we're living in the same area, and I know the high regard in which you're held and the respect people have for you, including kids who are wondering why the toy man is being in the news so much. That said, obviously, I wonder, given the events of the last 2 weeks, and we have engaged with RTE on quite a number of times, has that been the reason why you wanted to come here voluntarily, or was it actually more of what you heard from those engagements with RTE and what they've said, the various executives and board members, or has it been that everything else surrounding this whole issue? What's the main driver of you wanting to be here? I
think that my name has been desperately sullied. I think my reputation has been sullied. I'm deeply upset. I'm hurt. It's hard to leave the house if you really want me to be honest about it. So, for what? I spent 3 weeks watching people telling stories. I'm sorry, I'm leaving a gap. Forgive me, it's a comma, not a full stop. But I know, I'm not looking for sympathy now or a violin. I'm simply saying to you, you asked me the question, and you bring up the kids. My relationship with the children of Ireland is so important to me. I know that sounds grandiose, but actually it is. I want them to be happy and hopeful and proud to be Irish and read lots of books and just be wonderful young people. That doesn't change. But what's happened in the last 3 weeks? It's like frenzy.
Can I specifically ask you then, in terms of what you've heard, and maybe to Mr. Kelly as well on this, all of the evidence, and I presume you watched all of the evidence that's been given to both Oireachtas committees over the last couple of weeks. Even in Mr. Tubridy's statement, I think you refer to it as a fog of confusion. To me, it's a cloud of confusion at this point, because there's what you're saying now directly contradicts what this committee and others have been told over the last couple of weeks by certain individuals. And that's extremely worrying, both from a parliamentary perspective, but also from a fact and truthful perspective. Bearing in mind, referring to your own statement, Mr. Kelly, an institution of the Irish state and those representing it. Can I just turn to a few elements? One is in terms of the question around your decision, Mr. Tubridy, and you said that you had been thinking about it long and hard, and obviously I can appreciate why it would be such a big decision.
Yeah.
But is there any evidence, and it's not that I doubt your decision or when you made your decision,
please don't.
But for clarity in terms of the public domain,
yes.
Is there any correspondence predating
this scandal?
April, May, yeah.
The RT scandal.
Between the two of you, it's not that I want it published, but I just want to clear the record. Is there anything that his text messages, emails, anything that's saying, look, this is coming up?
Sorry, Deputy. We asked to come here today.
I understand. We
asked to come here today. Yeah. We weren't invited, we asked. And we saw, over the last 3 weeks, I've never seen such horrendous reporting. And why suddenly the most trusted man in Ireland, Ryan Tubridy, it was like throw him under a bus. What? Why? When that report came out, the first report came out that was sent out from the board on the 22nd.
Yeah, this is the statement.
The statement. Yeah. We had to ask our lawyers, can we get a copy? Because again, we're on the back foot. When RT said at the top 10 earners, again, we get 10 minutes. And again, I had to put in a request. Can we please have the information? And again, so we got the statement, and when we got the statement, half an hour before it went out, we said there's inaccuracies in this. And Grant Thornton said there was no wrongdoing on behalf of Ryan Tubridy and Noel Kelly. Everything was. We asked them to put it in, and they didn't. 4 days later, it was sorry. If I could just answer, 4 days later, it was put in, right? And 4 days later, Ryan Tubridy was taken off the air. He didn't have a show on Friday. He wasn't on the show the following week. It looked like he was complicit in this whole RTE mess. So I'm sorry. We have. This has been the worst of times. The worst of times.
No, I appreciate that, and I know that's why you're here.
But that's exactly.
I'd like to add, people have families.
Yeah.
Just think. People need to think about. I mean, you're a public representative. You know what it means when you're in the middle of something. I get that. No, I'm not. This is my first rodeo being in the public eye, but I've never seen anything like it. I don't know if any of you've been cancelled before, but let me tell you, you don't want to be there.
So just in terms.
Okay.
So
we can talk about that later.
Can I ask you then, just in terms of the, I suppose, the statements that have been made, both the physical statements and indeed the oral statements that are made in the House of the Oireachtas, you've alluded to one of the inaccuracies, Mr. Tubridy, you say about the secretly overpayment by RTE, which you said, which you challenged back in 2020. Was that in writing, that challenge?
Yes, wasn't. We have the. It's in your documents.
Yeah, it's in your documents because
there's a lot of documents.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I do appreciate the lot of documents, and but that's why we've been working on this so long.
You have it in writing. That's all I want to establish.
We have it in writing, and we went back and we actually asked them.
Can I just also get a time frame then in terms of the negotiation of Mr. Tubridy's first contract? Did that started probably in 2014, was it?
Sorry, the 15 contract would have started probably end of 14. End of 14. And then
and that ran to 2020. And then there was fresh negotiations around that. Okay. When did the negotiation start for the Renault contract?
Which would run parallel with the 2020 contract. So it would have started probably late 19.
So you can see where the confusion then, or the cloud of confusion, or what a fog of confusion arises when people say, well, the two of them are running parallel to each other, and one has a 20% pay cut and the other one has a
Sure.
Okay.
So can I just answer, please?
Please, because I'm under time pressure.
I know, but you asked me a question. Yeah. Within that time frame, very simply, we had, as I said, we had agreed to the 120 gone. We'd agreed to 525,000 not to be invoiced. We didn't go out printing that, and I appreciate what you're saying in a fog. Like, there's so much confusion.
Try to sit it when we're sitting.
No, I mean, if you're finding you're
okay,
confused,
can I just ask you though? Okay, that's fine, and thank you for that. Can I just also say to you, in terms of the invoicing, I hear what you say. You did what you were told.
Yes.
There was an email there in the pack that you provided.
Absolutely.
Saying also mention all this information on the invoice. Now, Astus, I think, is the name of the company that you were told to invoice from. Did you ever meet any representative from Astus?
No.
Or was this just a new company that you were told to invoice?
This was a company we were told to invoice.
And that wasn't really questioned at all on your part, though, either?
No.
So if RTE asked you to pay, News Talk, would you have done that too? I mean, that's the question. Where is it? I'm being facetious because I'm just asking. All of a sudden, a new company, you're negotiating with RTE on a contract. You're told to invoice a different company you've never heard of. Yeah. Where did that come about, and how come there was no question about that?
That came from RTE.
I know, I get that, but why wasn't there a question about who am I invoicing? I'm negotiating with RTE, and now I'm invoicing Joe Bloggs.
Well, I worked personally with RTE for 23 years. I'd never have questioned working with RTE.
And did they ever ask you to invoice a company you never heard of?
We had never done a roadshow like this before.
No, but so this in your negotiations,
so I assumed that it was Renault.
Okay, and in terms of that Zoom call then, so the 7th of May,
with
right?
G Forbes and RTE lawyers.
Okay, and so were they the solicitors that you're talking about, the Trish Whelan and so there was three representatives from RTE, 2 from the solicitor's office and the DG.
There was one from the solicitor's office, the DG, and myself, and then a colleague of mine.
A colleague of yours, so it was on your side. Okay, and can I just ask then, in terms of just in the last minute or so I have. In terms of the toy show, the musical, because we've heard a lot about this, and we've heard there was a 2.2 million loss. Now, I know it's not Mr. Kelly, I know you're not directly involved, but you're an agent, obviously, on behalf of Mr. Tubridy. But Mr. Tubridy obviously works with RTE.
Can I please answer that one?
Well, we haven't got the question.
Well, can I ask this, though?
Yes.
Were there staff members from the Late Show seconded to the musical, be it production staff, other personnel from RTE directly working on Toy Show the musical?
The Toy Show the musical was something I had nothing to do with. So
I know, but are you aware of anybody?
I think it's only fair to say that you should put those questions to people in RTE about that, because in fairness, like that was not my.
You're not aware of any staff that were seconded from RTE to the Toy Show the musical?
No, there might have been people working in parallel, but seconded is probably too strong a word.
Okay. And then just in the last couple of seconds, can I just ask, probably Mr. Tubridy, given that you're the face, as was said earlier, of this issue.
Yeah, that's been unfortunate.
Yeah. So in terms of everything you've heard from your former colleagues in RTE, directors and executives, what has been the biggest inaccuracy that you've heard that you say? I know you've highlighted 7, but is there any one in particular that you want to highlight in on this afternoon?
I think 7 is quite enough.
Okay, thank you. Deputy John Brady, 10 minutes.
I'd like to welcome our witnesses here this morning before the committee, and hopefully this meeting will go some way towards getting transparency, something that I think has been missing up until this point. I just want to establish a timeline, a clear timeline as to who knew what and when. So we know on March the 3rd, Mr. Tubridy, you had stated when questioned about your ongoing position with the Late Show as to whether you will continue or not. You said, I don't know where this is coming from. The story comes up every year or two. I am here talking to you today with a view to go straight back into the job I love. Yes. So that's correct.
No, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yep.
In fact, I remember well that interview, and I can fill you in on all the details you want when you want.
There's no need to know, but that's accurate. March the 3rd, March the 7th. We know from questioning that Deloitte first contacted Richard Collins, the Chief Financial Officer. I think that has been established. It's not disputed. We know Mr. Collins then on March the 8th contacted D. Forbes to get to the bottom as to the nature of those 2 invoices that we know had been issued. That's not up for dispute. Now, it was suggested or it was stated that a meeting took place between Mr. Kelly and someone within RTE the week beginning of the 6th of March of this year. Do you recall meeting someone?
No, I know. I mean, as I said, the only meetings I had with Ms. Forbes were in the RT boardroom with her and her lawyers and her accountants, and we had a Zoom call. That was it. Okay.
It was stated that you met with Alan Tyler from RTE the week beginning the 6th of March.
No recollection of that.
You've no recollection of that?
No.
Okay. So can I ask Mr. Tubridy, when did you notify RTE that you were going to...
Sorry. Alan Tyler.
You thought it was somebody else?
Yeah, sorry.
I'll come back to you if you want to go back to that question first.
Sorry.
Yeah, Alan Tyler, the new head of entertainment.
Yeah.
Yes.
You met with him on what date?
I would have met with them quite a few times when he started.
In March. What date?
I'm not really sure.
And what was the purpose of that meeting?
Yeah.
You would just suggest, just to maybe by way of being helpful, just if you have your diary with you, maybe that you could just check that during the break.
I actually don't.
Just so you could, or if you could have somebody check it during the break.
Oh, yeah.
We'll be breaking for 10 minutes. Continue.
No, I think it'd be important that we establish when you met with him in March. It was stated that March the 6th, and I think it's important in terms of the time.
The 13th?
No, Deputy, can I ask you what is the question?
I'm just wondering when he met with Mr. Tyler.
Okay, we'll find that out for you during the break, for sure. Sorry.
And Mr. Tubridy, when did you inform RTE you were stepping down?
Well, Noel, on my behalf, informed RTE on March the 13th. And
March
that's
13th.
right.
Okay. On the same day, you announced publicly that you were going to be stepping back from the Late Show.
No, that was...
You're talking about that interview that a few weeks before, where I was at an event in Do you want me to go into this, or
no? You stated publicly on March the 16th that you were going to be stepping back. When did you notify RTE of your
13th.
decision? The 13th.
Oh, sorry, excuse me.
Okay.
Yeah, my apologies. The 13th to RTE and the 16th to the public.
So can I ask, had anyone in RTE notified you, Mr. Tubridy, or you, Mr. Kelly, of the concerns that the light had?
Can I answer? I really must, Deputy. I have to, because we can be here till the last.
Yes or no? Because time is unfortunately.
Well, do you know what?
Yes or no? Did anyone from RTE?
I need a little time too. Forgive me, but I will be here till the last dog barks until you believe me that decision came from my heart and soul. That started being that decision. The kernel of it was last August. Okay. So we can talk about timelines
yes or no,
and dates
and
Grant Thornton and everything else. This was a very personal decision.
Okay. So can you answer the question then? Did anyone from RTE contact either you, Mr. Tubridy, or you, Mr. Kelly, about the review that the light had initiated?
Not till May.
Not till May.
Correct.
Not till May. Can I ask just in terms of the...
I was the one who went in.
Can I ask in terms of the tripartite agreement, which wasn't signed until the 21st of the 4th, 2023. A month and a half after the issue was first identified by Deloitte. Why was that only signed
because
at that stage?
Because the agreement originally was supposed to be for 2020, the first lot of events, but then that was COVID. Then it went to 21, that was COVID. So finally 22, we did the first number of events. So as a result, it wasn't signed.
Okay, so we're expected to believe that it's purely coincidental that a month and a half after Deloitte identified these, questionable invoices, that you take this down off the shelf when everything had hit the fan, and you retrospectively sign it a couple of years after the contract had taken place, and that's just pure coincidental.
If I could just answer?
Yep.
The invoices were sent to RTE. They sent them to Astis.
Okay, I'm just asking about this, the tripartite agreement, in fairness now, Mr. Kelly. So it's purely coincidental that was taken down off the shelf and signed in April, a month and a half after Deloitte raised these concerns.
Well, the agreement, the three people in the agreement is Renault, RTE, and we were a separate agreement just to provide services. So, just want to make that clear.
Okay, so
the services were turnover, and it's actually more of, I suppose, what will happen on the night, who will be there, how many people will be there. It's an operational thing, really.
Okay, so you're leading us to believe it was pure coincidence that was signed in April, a month after Deloitte raised these issues, and a number of years after the contract had been formed or come about. So can I just ask in relation...
On the 18th of April, page 35 in the pack, Niamh, thank you for calling this morning. Email below is the one I mentioned, refers to the third side letter, which you don't seem to have in file. We don't seem to have a fully signed copy with Renault. We signed it later. The first contact with... but the first contact, we weren't concealing any issue. It was just a Renault. It was just a Renault.
Can I just ask in relation to the commercial contract that you say it was Breda O'Keefe who came up with the idea of this commercial contract?
That put it forward first. Yeah.
And is that a normal thing, or would this be unusual in terms of your negotiating on behalf of?
To be honest, I would. That's an RTE thing. I don't know how,
Okay, the people that you represent, would it be normal that RTE would put forward proposals for a commercial element to be part of the contract? Would that be normal or an exception?
It would be exceptional, and this is exceptional because Ryan, as the host of the Late Late Show, and Renault as the sponsor of the Late Late Show, and the Late Late Show being owned by RTE, it is. Yeah, it's unique.
It's an exception. No other cases of any of the other people. No other cases. So, in relation to the invoicing, then that we know there was an attempt, and there's a trail there that no names were to appear on the invoices. Whose suggestion was it to label them as consultancy fees?
RTE.
RTE. who in RTE informed you to put them down as consultancy fees?
Geraldine O'Leary.
Geraldine O'Leary. Okay, in the Grant Thornton review, it states very clearly that there was no consultancy fees provided either by the talent or the talent's agents, and it did not reflect the substance of the transactions. Can I ask you, the Chief Financial Officer under questioning last week, when he asked in relation to these invoices, the legality of them, he stated that it was, in his view, that the public had been defrauded because of the labelling of these invoices. So you clearly followed the instructions of Geraldine O'Leary to, I would suggest, purposely confuse the true nature of the invoices and what was being billed for. Would you agree with the Chief Financial Officer that the public has been potentially defrauded because of the issuing of these invoices by yourself and the payment by RTE of the $275,000?
At all times, we were acting under instruction from RTE, as we've already stated.
Okay, but would you agree with the Chief Financial Officer that the taxpayer has been potentially defrauded because there was no consultancy fees provided?
Again, this was under instruction from RTE.
Okay, but
it's an RTE question.
Who issued the invoices? Who issued the invoices to RTE?
Who issued the invoices?
Yeah.
We sent invoices to RTE, which RTE then
You issued the invoices labelled consultancy fees, knowing that there was no consultancy fees provided.
Deputy, so we acted under instruction from RTE
you
at all
issued
times.
I want to go before the break.
No,
Okay.
no, because I was prepared
No,
for a break.
we can agree to suspend briefly for 10 minutes, or you can wait till we take another speaker. Which sort of committee you want to do? Take another one? Okay.
Well, you said half 12 before taking a break here.
I'm happy to do whatever suits anyone.
Yeah, Deputy, no, we have to break for 10 minutes.
Will we take a break?
Yeah.
Take
No,
a break.
right, okay, so the meeting is suspended for 10 minutes. Thank you. member with his member staff in RT. Did you clarify that during the break?
There was a meeting with Alan Tyler and Jim Jennings, who will be head of programme and content. Alan Tyler is our head of entertainment.
Okay.
Yeah, 6th of March. So we had a meeting.
And the date of it, that was
The date.
Yes.
Is what?
6th of March.
6th of March was that date. Okay, thank you. Next committee member is Deputy Verona Murphy.
Thank you, Chair. And just in relation to that meeting, Mr. Kelly, was the topic Grant Thornton brought up?
No, thank you. The topic was issues around, I suppose, well, really, the Late Late Show timings when it started. During COVID, the Late Late Show finished at 11 o'clock.
Well,
so the issues were around...
And I don't mean to cut you off, but you're just categorically stating that there was a discussion.
Sorry. Yeah, no, it was very much about issues around the Late Late Show and trying to finish it earlier, etc.
Okay, thank you. But it does seem a bit odd that you'd have been having that discussion given Mr. Tubridy's resignation, or was it just for the remaining shows?
No, it was before. It was before, and it wasn't related to it.
Okay.
Maybe you want to talk about?
Yeah,
well,
no.
Were you at that meeting?
Yes, I was. Yeah.
Okay. But it had nothing to do, as you're categorically saying, there was no discussion.
Deputy Murphy, like I said at the statement at the outset, it was one of the untruths I really, really wanted to clear up here today. And there was no connection between this fiasco and my departure from the Late Late Show. I promise you.
So you'll have watched all of the previous engagements. So is it your view, Mr. Tubridy? And it's hard, like, I don't know, like, look, for a start, I'd like to say you're welcome here.
Thank you for
and
that.
it's nice that you came without having to be compelled.
Thank you.
But I think it's not that anybody knows how to address you, because everybody feels they know you.
I know, I prefer if you call me Ryan, but I understand that's
like
not the nature of it.
when you call me deputy,
Okay.
but even all that aside, it's superfluous. But the reality is this. You will have seen Mr. Adrian Lynch, who was the interim Director General, say that it was possible that you did know pre your announcement.
Yes, that's very unfortunate.
And do you feel, is it your view then, that Mr. Lynch threw you under the bus with that connotation?
Mr. Lynch is entitled to his conjecture, but in this case it's incorrect.
Okay. Well, let me move to your statement, because you have outlined 7 untruths. And to be fair, you've come here to give your side of the story, and we as deputies need to hear both sides and find the truth in between. But I think you have outlined in your statement 7 untruths. And what I'd just like to ask you, is it your view, and maybe this is for Mr. Kelly also, but is it your view that those untruths were intended to deceive not just the public, but the Public Accounts Committee into thinking that you two gentlemen were responsible for everything that has happened here?
I think being frank with you, we watched some of the proceedings quite aghast.
But is it your view that those untruths were intended to deceive?
I would hope that in a more positive moment that wasn't the case, that this is a misunderstanding rather than an intent to deceive. I would hope, but maybe Noel has something better to say about that.
I may not be as kind as Ryan. And I think there were a lot of misunderstandings. I think, as Ryan said at the outset, if everybody had just, at the start, and when we had to ask, can we get the statement, everybody just had sat down and said, what is this? Yeah. It's all there, it would have been explained. The 120,000, there was no 120,000, and on and on and on.
Well, just in your case, Mr. Kelly, at some point Mr. Collins was being asked in relation to why he did not ask questions with regard to the invoices being raised with consultancy fees as the description.
Yeah.
He said that because, and I don't want to misquote, but the intimation was that yourself and Dee Forbes had he was aware that you had a particularly close relationship.
Yes.
Now, that's not what you said earlier.
No, as I said, I've never even had a cup of tea with her. Like, literally,
So
I've only ever met her with her lawyers and her accountants, and you only ever meet the DG, and as the previous DG, when there's something that...
In your view, why would either Mr Collins be of that opinion, or why would he express it in that regard?
I have no idea whatsoever.
And but in your view then, do you believe that he intended to deceive this committee?
I honestly can't say. I don't know. And to be honest with you, like there was so many untruths, I just had to stop looking and listening. You know, we were under siege, like unreal.
Well, I think clearly from the notes we've received, and I know we received them late this morning, they're quite comprehensive in discarding what you believe to be untruths. Like your definition, my definition of an untruth is a lie. It's a lie. If it's not true, it's a lie.
Sure.
So are you able to say in your view that RTE lied to this committee and those representing them?
Well, as you said, there were untruths.
Well, I think that.
Careful with language.
Well, I think I don't need to be careful, Chair, because the definition of an untruth is.
Do you wish to answer that, Mr. Kelly, please, Mr. Tubridy?
I think there's been a lot of lies, intentional or not. I don't know.
Sorry, can you just repeat that again?
I think there've been a lot of lies, and that's why we're here, intentional or not. I don't know. I don't know half of these people. I've barely met them.
Would it be fair to say that, given that we've outlined our side of the story today, I would love the people to decide what the definition of a truth or mistruth or a lie is, in the sense that I would hope that they get some clarity today.
Well, on that, Mr. Tubridy, has there been pre-litigation letters issued on your behalf, both of your behalves, at this point?
No, I don't.
Not at this point.
That's
for clarity. Yes, thank you.
No, thank you. No.
And I just want to clarify a number of things. You named Trish Whelan, Mr. Kelly. Yeah. Did Trish Whelan work for your office?
No, Trish Whelan is RTE Legal.
RTE Legal. And Katrina Fallon?
She's in the legal department as well.
Both RTE Legal?
On RTE, yeah.
Okay. And I want to go back because I've been trying to put myself in Dee Forbes' shoes for the past couple of weeks. I just want you to give me an outline pre the 19th of December. Is there any contemporaneous note of what gave rise to that email or that meeting that took place beforehand? We start, if I'm not mistaken, on the 19th of December with your documents.
Oh, sir.
And it's proposed terms for new contract, and that's on the 19th of December. Yes. But I'm just looking from that perspective where the starting point was that gave rise to the commercial relationship, the 75,000 commercial relationship.
Sorry, I was just looking for the. So what's the exact question?
So the question is. If I was Dee Forbes, I'm trying in my head to figure out what it was that you put to Dee Forbes that you say RTE came up with the plan, the scheme to give 75,000. Yeah. Like, what gave rise to it?
So, the sponsor, RTE's probably biggest sponsor, and RTE wanted these events. So they came with the idea of the events, where they'd happen, when they'd happen, mini late roadshow, Ryan Tubridy associations.
Okay,
completely separate to the contract. To Ryan's radio and TV contract. And the first 3 were done in year 3 because of COVID, and then obviously there's contractually there's still another 6 out.
So was it the position that had that 75,000 not been on the table that Mr. Tubridy would have walked from his contract?
Not at all. No. Ryan has other contracts, as I said, with BBC. He'd cover for different people on BBC, and he'd have his book contracts.
So there was no pressure put on Ms. Forbes in which there was another. You didn't say Mr. Tubridy's been offered a job in BBC, and if we don't do A, B, or C.
And actually, quite the opposite. It was at those meetings, Ryan took €105,000 pay cut per annum. So that was the 525,000. So if we were looking, if that was the pressure point, you wouldn't have reduced.
And we've heard that. So I'm just trying to ascertain why Ms. Forbes would give away, effectively, €75,000 which really was RTE's public revenue, would have been.
But you see it actually. So, if I can just explain. When the invoices were made at ASIS, they were directly emailed to RTE, and that's what was necessary to process them at ASIS.
Well, they're much further on. I'm trying to ascertain why she would have entered.
Sorry, so the first invoice was Renault, but why she would enter into an agreement?
Well, if there was, why she first of all gave a guarantee, and what was at the back of.
We're going over time.
I mean, essentially that was in case the sponsor relationship is with RTE, not with us. And for me, what that was about was if there was a new sponsor in, that during the duration of the contract, that we would be able to work with the next sponsor. But it wasn't ever an RTE payment. It was Renault, and Renault were always paying the invoice. It was never meant to be RTE to pay this, ever.
Yes, but they received it back in terms of the way the deal was constructed, the benefit of that 75,000. You've contradicted, by the way, what Dee Forbes has told us in the Public Accounts Committee previously, back over the last few years, that the reason that they had to pay these fees is because the talent to start would walk. But I don't want to divert to that. Deputy Alan Dillon, 10 minutes.
Yeah, thanks very much, Caoirleach, and I'd like to welcome our witnesses joining us today, and thanks for being here. Mr. Kelly, you said today that Mr. Tubridy is being made the poster boy for this payment scandal. Why is that the case?
Why is that the case? Well, intentionally or unintentionally, as said, when the board and RTE released the statement, without consulting us, with us having to ask for it, and then not acknowledging that there was no wrongdoing, taking him off air, then he was the face. He was the face of it. And that's where it started, and it's been working in its own vacuum for the last two and a half weeks. Where that's why we wanted to come in, we want to talk to you, we want to tell you everything that we know, because it's been very hard looking at so many untruths. Definitely been told.
Yeah. Do you accept responsibility that your actions have been reckless in nature when dealing with RTE on this matter?
No. I don't. We have just always followed process of every single time. RTE is a €350 million organisation. In 2021, 190 million was licence fee, and 148 million was commercial.
Sorry, Mr. Kelly. Let me ask the next question. So you're trying to put the sole blame on RTE here?
In relation to
this payment scandal?
Yes, completely.
And does it not take two to tango, Mr. Kelly?
But we were just following process. We were just working under instructions from RTE.
Okay, so does it suit you and your client to keep things ambiguous? Because we've heard a lot of statements already, muddy in the water per se. When things become difficult, you can place the blame back onto RTE management. I think that's what's happening. That's what's happened in this area.
I think, as you know, we came ourselves here today. This is the first time we've had a chance to actually talk. If it's any ambiguity, it's on RTE side. I think what we've set out
Mr. Kelly,
we've set out is answers to.
You have been engaging with RTE for the past 23 years.
Yes.
Is that correct? How many people do you represent?
The top 10, 3. That's all. There's another agent that represents the other 7.
So, in relation to the raising of the invoices described for consultancy fees, I just want to clear up this matter. You stated previously that Geraldine O'Leary and RTE were responsible.
Yes.
How is that?
Because it was under instruction from them.
Okay.
Because the relationship with RTE is with Renault. We have nothing to do with Renault.
So Mr. Kelly, you were following instruction.
Yes.
So therefore, did you collude with RTE in a falsehood of concealment of them invoices by labelling them consultancy fees? That's a straightforward question, Mr. Kelly.
I'm sorry, could you just...
You said you were following instructions.
Yes.
Okay? So therefore, did you collude with RTE in a falsehood of concealment by describing them invoices for consultancy fees?
I said that we had no benefit in seeking to suppress knowledge of any payments.
But this was fraudulent accounting practices.
And we certainly didn't do any fraudulent accountancy.
But you followed instruction. You never raised, this alarm bells were never raised amongst you representing your client in relation to these invoices?
Sure. Again, as I said, we're a small company of 8 people. They're massive. They have accountants, they have auditors, they have lawyers.
But just in relation to the invoices.
we're just following under instruction, and I had no reason not to believe them.
The former CFO, in his opinion, described these as defrauding the taxpayer. Do you agree with that assessment?
I didn't even hear that it said that again.
Do you still see these invoices related to consultancy fees?
These invoices were as instructed.
As instructed. And what were they for? What was the nature of them?
They were for a minimum of 3 late shows.
Did they describe what they were intended for?
They were, so in the first invoice, as you can see, we were instructed by RT what to put in it, and the second invoice, the third invoice, we were just following process.
Do you accept the lack of complete credibility to invoice a company you never heard of in a different country for work undertaken here in Dublin?
I think the lack of credibility is on RT's side.
On RTE's side?
Definitely.
So how many other deals were done with RTE, with your business, Mr. Kelly, when asked to use a company from abroad that you've never heard of before?
The road shows were unique because it was late, Ryan, Renault, RTE.
Mr. Kelly, you're not taking any responsibility for the oversight here of Mr. Tubridy's earnings, are you, in relation to what we've actually been told in this committee room?
I don't understand what you mean by oversight.
Are you taking any responsibility in relation to the oversight of the dealings with Mr. Tubridy in relation to these invoices? You said you followed instruction from RTE.
Yeah.
But your responsibilities on behalf of your client, did you not proof test each of the steps that were required?
My responsibility is absolutely on my client's behalf, and that's what we do.
Mr. Tubridy, you said in your statement, and you emphasised the importance of truth, the full truth, and you stated that the full truth was concealed. Okay? So in your opinion, and after what we've listened to from Mr. Kelly, who do you believe was responsible for concealing the truth?
I believe the person sitting to my left, and what he tells me, I believe. And what he's told you, I believe.
In your opinion, do you think
That's
your
right.
agent colluded with RTE to conceal these payments?
No. I think my agent did what he was instructed to do by RTE.
Mr. Tubridy, your earnings went up by €75,000 in 2020, credited from Renault, on a side deal, and then you received another €150,000 in 2022, underwritten at the request by RTE.
Yes.
So, am I missing something here? At a time between April 2020 and July 2020,
yes,
when we were in the middle of a pandemic,
yes,
where you had taken a 20% pay cut on
yes.
your contract, which was signed the 1st of April,
yes,
and that these side deals were undertaken at a time where the country was going through huge difficulty,
yes,
and you feel that these payments should not have been put into the public domain.
I was under the understanding that the payments had come from Renault, a very successful commercial company. So I didn't feel that it was an RTE situation.
Separate contract.
Even though
separate too.
Even though RTE, as we've heard from your agent, was responsible for the payment of these invoices.
We weren't paid by RTE, we were paid by Astus, and we assumed that was from Renault.
Yeah, that's the misunderstanding.
And that's the misunderstanding. Like, Renault paid the first one under instruction, RTE asked us to send out the other ones, and we were paid by Astus.
So can I ask again, who suggested the side deal of any description?
I don't know what you mean by a side deal.
The tripartite agreement.
That was RTE.
RTE. And who wanted the underwriting in the first instance?
Well, the underwriting, as I said, was simply about if the sponsor changed. That's all. We never assumed RTE would be paying for anything. If the sponsor changed, that we'd be able to re-engage with the sponsor. The relationship with the sponsors with RTE, we know we weren't allowed near it. We have never worked with Renault before. We only worked with them on this. So,
at a time, Mr. Tubridy, you looked for written assurances in relation to any further pay cuts in your 2020 contract. Did you seek a written letter in relation to that?
No, he didn't. I did. Because having taken €105,000 per year by 525, and not accepting the 120,000 that he was due in contract, I just said, look, you cannot. When is a contract a contract? A contract is only a contract when it's actually agreed and honoured on both sides.
RTE claimed that they've completely rejected the claim of underwriting the Renault tripartite agreement. Do you accept what they say in relation to that?
Well, I bring you to the most important email here today is on page 10 of our book, and in it says, and this is from the previous CFO, we made good progress on what the commercial agreement would be. We had to agree to one in Dublin, two outside Dublin, again, all directed from RTE.
What date is on that, Mr. Kelly?
So that was 20th of February 2020, which are RTE-led late show events. We can provide you with the side letter to underwrite this fee for the duration of the contract. And the underwriting wasn't about final. Like, how would we know RTE were going to be paying for it? What the letter was about was if the contractor, if the sponsor changed, that we would be able to work with the other sponsor.
Thank you. Deputy McAuliffe.
Thank you very much, Cathaoirleach, and to the witnesses. And look, I should start from the outset by saying we have a very clear remit at the Public Accounts Committee to get to the bottom of what's happening, and certainly your presence here today is very welcome. You've provided additional information, and I thank you for that. I also want to note, Mr. Tubridy, that in your opening statement you say you have great credibility, or you have great respect for the institutions of this House, and I think that statement has great credibility. I've listened to you for a long time, and I appreciate those comments.
It's important.
The difficulty that we have is that for whatever reason something happened here, and essentially RTE reduced its income by €75,000, and in turn €75,000 was paid to Tuttle Productions. Was paid to Tuttle Productions, albeit for additional duties on your behalf. So whether who knew what and when is really important, because that is essentially what happened. €75,000 of a credit note was given to Renault. In return, €75,000 was given to your production company, and you did additional duties. So it's really important that we know who and what, and that is why some of the information you've given us is really crucial. You've said very clearly that one of the truths you wish to lift is that you're an independent contractor, and I accept that. But would you accept that this arrangement with RTE is not like work you've gathered from other companies like the BBC and so on? In essence, RTE facilitated it, it introduced it to their clients, they were party to the agreement. The events followed the late format, which is mentioned in the agreement. RTE paid for the staging and the catering and so on. So it's not fair to compare this contract with other contracts that you gain entirely separately. Would you accept that?
Yeah, that's a fair observation.
Yeah, okay. And so the suggestion is that RTE created this arrangement in order to bolster your income. Do you accept that?
I understand why you'd say that, but I can't accept it as a matter of fact, because I think it is it fair to say that we would, as an independent contractor, you do different jobs for different companies.
Yeah.
Like, so for example, I've written a couple of books, albeit a couple of kids' books, I don't know, and I would have done, as Noel has said, work in the BBC before. That's independent contractor. They're complete.
But RTE wouldn't have paid for the catering at the launch of those events. Yeah. They wouldn't have provided staff. They wouldn't have had any.
I understand the nuance of your point.
Yeah. So I think it's a fair point you make about being an independent contractor, but it's not necessarily a relevant point to this, because this was an arrangement created by RTE at their behest, according to your evidence, that created by RTE.
Yes.
And the net effect of that was the taxpayer lost €75,000 and you gained it.
Yeah, well, again, this is...
Can I address the statement?
Whether you knew that was happening or not is a different question.
No, I appreciate
that is what's happened.
If I can address the first question in relation to the staging, As a sponsor of the Late Show, Rana were perhaps the most important sponsor in all sponsors. And the fee paid by the sponsor of the Late Show would dwarf any other sponsorship that they'd had. RTE was focused on keeping Renault happy, maximising the potential of their investment and the Late Show. I think Geraldine O'Leary said when she was here the other week that, and certainly during COVID, they had tickets for the audience, they had no tickets for the audience, there's a green room, there's no green room, so they were trying
Kelly,
to...
you're way off point. The point is very simple. The point is very simple. I put it, Mr. Tubridy, I'll put it to you. Do you appreciate that that RTE lost €75,000 worth of income as a fact, and that Mr. Tubridy's production company gained $75,000 as a result of this tri-party?
Well, no, I completely disagree with that. So,
no, but you can't disagree with that because that's what actually happened.
I know, but if I can, just from our side, please explain. The first 75 was paid by Renault. The figure of 225, 75 was paid by Renault, not RTE, for delivery of 3 Renault road shows, had nothing to do with Ryan's broadcasting contract, and the amount claimed was their payment because they'd issued a credit note. We'd no idea about the Michelin credit notes.
Mr. Kelly, I'm not asking you how it arose. Mr. Kelly, just for a moment.
Sure.
I appreciate you referring to yours. I'm not asking you how it arose. I'm asking you, do you accept that RTE reduced its income from Renault by €75,000 and that Mr. Tubridy gained €75,000 additional income for additional work?
Sure. I think with RTE and Renault, that's completely between RTE and Renault.
Of course, but my point is, do you accept that that's what happened?
Our understanding of what they do, as you can see.
So I'm taking that you accept that that's the fact of the situation.
So we've no idea what Renault do. In relation to Ryan's contract, it was...
But Mr. Kelly, the crux of the problem is that is what actually happened, and we need to find out who knew that, because it looks like there's an attempt to deceive.
Okay, well then, if that's the question, we were deceived as well.
Okay.
We were deceived as well.
Okay, so are you both saying that, and it's entirely likely that you don't know, are you both saying you were not aware that the title sponsor, the Late Show, was reducing its sponsorship by €75,000?
No.
So that never came up. That's not part of it.
Absolutely.
Because the cost-neutral nature of the agreement is really important.
Sure.
Because that's what really brings it down to the core, that money was taken off the books. And both of you are saying you had no idea that, in Miss O'Leary's evidence, she said she raised the credit note of €75,000 and she did that on the instruction of Miss Forbes, and you have no idea or arrangement.
No idea.
It never formed part of any of the contract negotiations and so on. That's great. Okay, look, that's important to get on the table, okay? Mr. Tubridy, the difficulty with that is that I suppose a lot of your colleagues would have taken reductions, and they would perceive that this additional arrangement, arranged by RTE, was not in the spirit of what was happening at the time. I suppose you want at some point to go back into RTE, to go into the canteen, to be able to look in the eye of the person serving you a cup of coffee, to talk down the mic of somebody there's a sound engineer at the other end of it, to look through the lens of a camera. You have to be able to look those people in the eye.
Mm-hmm. You're describing my friends.
Yeah, but the facts of the situation were that you received additional money and they did not.
Yes. And back to my opening statement, that cuts were made down through the years. I think.
Other reductions.
40% since 2012.
Since 2012.
40%, which excludes the 120.
The final figure is 40% pay cut.
40%.
I really tried not to shirk my responsibility in that regard.
Fully accept that, but the facts are before us, and that I think that is your difficulty.
This is why we're
everyone's
here today.
difficulty.
I appreciate
exactly. Mr. Kelly, I want to turn to the invoice that was raised. So there's an email in your pack, page 25, which appears to be from somebody in RTE, which says, "Do not put any person's name on the invoice. If he sends it back to me, then I will sort everything out." Who is that email from?
From Geraldine.
Sorry.
It's from somebody who worked for Geraldine.
So it's from an RTE staff member?
Yes.
Can you provide us with the name of that person?
Sorry, we were instructed.
I'm happy if you want to reflect on it.
GDPR, and it's a
GDPR issue.
Yeah.
Okay. It looks very clear to me, as somebody responsible for public money, that when someone says in an email, "Do not put any person's name or invoice on the invoice," it's important for me to know who that was. I'd ask you to reflect on that, and if you can provide us the name, I will be asking RTE the same question. The second question then is, on the 7th of May, there was a meeting, a Teams meeting, and there was 4 people at that meeting. Can you tell us who the 4 people were at that meeting?
So that would have been Trish Whelan, one of the RT solicitors, Dee Forbes, myself, and a colleague of mine, Niamh.
A colleague of yours.
Yes.
So the fourth person that we haven't been able to identify so far was a colleague of your own.
Yes.
Again, useful information. Okay. So I then turn to the issue of the invoices. And I have to question Mr. Kelly, you on this point, because this is the invoice for the first €75,000. And these are the invoices from the other two €75,000.
Yes.
One by Noel Kelly, the other two by CMS.
Yes.
One with the full description, the other two without the full description.
Yeah.
All relating to the same 75,000, all relating to the arrangement with Renault. You're the only one that raised these two invoices. It really strikes at the credibility of what you're saying, is that you treated this separately from this. Even after RTE's instruction, you treated them separately. Would that be fair?
Again, we were under instruction. As you can see, description from RTE, refer back to that.
But the invoices were raised with you. You have a fiduciary responsibility as director of your company. You raised two for the same three payments. You raised them under different companies, and you raised them for different reasons, and to invoice them to different people.
Yeah, and they were sent under instruction to RTE, and we presume that Renault were going to be paying this.
Okay. Last point. You're very clear, and you say that you should stress that NK management had no idea who Astis were. They had no reason to think that Astis was linked to RTE, and no reason to believe that it was being made on behalf of RTE. Would you be surprised that your name is also mentioned elsewhere in the Astis accounts?
Was this the rent,
the barter accounts?
Yeah. Sorry.
So on the 30th of the 11th, 2018, there's a reference to €2,394 raised in relation to a charity lunch by Noel Kelly in aid of Chernobyl.
Right. That's an RTE issue.
No, but my understanding is that obviously a fundraising lunch, and I'm not reflecting on the charity in any way.
Sure.
But it does strike to the heart of your suggestion that you didn't know what Astis was when there was a previous arrangement involving a charity lunch, albeit where the Astis account was invoiced.
Again, Deputy,
well, perhaps you might help us if you could tell us how that invoice was invoiced in the past, and it had no connection with Astis. Your story stacks up. If there's a previous invoice, if you told somebody to invoice Astis for the lunch, the charity lunch that you held, then the story doesn't. And I'm not. I don't have the facts before me. I'm just asking you the question.
And just clarify that, please.
Sorry,
just clarify that point for him.
Yeah.
Please, briefly.
The lunch in question, RT wanted to take a table, so the people that were organised, they asked them to invoice that.
So RTE told the charity to invoice Astis. You didn't know Astis was invoiced.
No.
Okay.
No.
Alan Kelly.
No.
Thank you, Chair. Just stay where we're kind of at the moment, because I read your documents and they were too late. It was insulting, by the way, for the committee and for the staff. It didn't go down well, but I did find your documents quite compelling and a very strong rebuttal. Some of my initial thoughts was beginning to fall apart a bit. RTE, and they're watching this obviously, and the DG is watching this. The statement that RTE issued this morning is astonishing. If the DG is not watching this, somebody tell him that whoever issued this and how it was issued, because it's quite obvious from the documentation, in fairness to yourselves, that you provided in relation to the side payment or side deal. As the email from RTE from Breda O'Keefe says, we can provide you with a side letter to underwrite this fee for the duration of the contract. It's quite obvious that evidence is very compelling to our committee based on the evidence we've been given before by RTE, and completely contradictory. The two of them totally opposite. So that's a big tick mark on your side. However, on the other side, there was no 20% drop in salary, in real terms. And to say so has no credibility whatsoever. Zero. Given the 75k and the various different payments, it was absorbed in a different way. That's quite obvious. The second issue, which brings huge amount of credibility, is you must have said, Mr. Kelly, about 15 times you were acting under instructions from RTE in relation to the payment processes. So the first payment goes through Noel Kelly, one of your companies, and that's ran out the first year. And the second one's through Atos, through CMS. So why the switch over? Okay. But the real issue is, you know, I've all of these emails coming into me from these whoever Nigerian cousins saying I won the lotto and they're instructing me to do the following X, Y, and Z. I don't do it. I think you've got serious accountancy issues here. I think your companies have serious accountancy issues here, based on what the evidence you're giving here. Because the fact is, this is not how companies behave. They get instructions to pay to an anonymised, unknown company for something that's then referred as consultancy fees. And under a contract that has been negotiated with RTE for private work outside, and then switches from Noel Kelly to CMS for the second and third year. None of this is credible. It doesn't stand up. So that's where your arguments are falling down. Now, I want to base some questions. Firstly, you talk about, and you mentioned the 20%, and sorry, short answers purely because of time, not trying to be rude or anything. The 20% drop. In the years 2015 to 2019, then to 2019 to 2023, I'll ask this question to Ryan. Your work schedule. So Mr. Kelly has said you took a 20% drop. I think all of us know here now that that ain't accurate. But your work schedule, were you doing the same amount of hours on all the shows? So are we comparing apples with apples, oranges with oranges? Was there a change between 2015 to 2019 and 2019 to 23 in relation to your hours of work? So then we can correlate again across how much of a drop in pay there actually really was based on hours worked.
You're trying to establish the percentage of the pay cut I took in the years from...
No, I'm asking you a very simple question.
No, I'm sorry, this
I know,
is not my strength.
I know.
No, it's not tiresome, it's not my ballpark.
Okay, but did you do the same amount of hours on your radio show and TV show from 2019 to 2023 as you would do per year 2015 to 2019?
I would imagine so, yeah.
Okay. So it is the exact same?
Yeah.
Okay.
205 1-hour radio shows could go up to 2, and then 38 2-hour
radio TV.
Minimum 2-hour TV shows, but that could go on till 12 o'clock, could be 2.5 hours, just depends.
So you didn't look for any changes in the contract to lessen the amount of hours or lessen the in time or anything like that?
I think that there were conversations insofar as the big issue is that
I can answer
so the longer the duration of the Late Late Show, the more sponsors, the more advertising that actually goes in.
I understand
there was a pushback in relation to, we asked if we could finish the Late Late at a hard 11:30. So that would have been 2 hours, and 2 hours is in the contract, but sometimes went on to 12, 12:15.
No, I know. I know.
You know the score. It can go late.
But my point being is, was there any changes in relation to your hours in actual real terms, contractually or anything? And you're saying no?
No.
Okay, fine. I just want to get back to the CMS versus NK issue, because I'm very interested by Paula Maloudy's kind of overlap of various different emails to yourselves in relation to the audit that came through. It's interesting that she asks, you confirm the invoices, or she asks about the invoices on May the 3rd in relation to the 275,000. And, you know, the emails go to NK management, but the response is from CMS. The response is information from CMS. My issue here is CMS, do they do, or have CMS done a large quantity of work with RTE separately? No. None. No. Why would NK management, why would that be swapped out and CMS put in for payment purposes, communication purposes from a corporate management point of view?
As I say, I own the two companies, and sometimes we'd invoice out of one, sometimes out of another, and they'd cross invoice, so there's no...
But like, throwing your eyes to heaven saying the crossover.
No,
from a corporate governance point of view, do you think that, from a corporate governance point of view,
we again,
from an accountancy point of view?
Sure, again, we were asked To invoice. We were asked how to invoice, when to invoice.
Yeah, but sorry now, I'm going to be straight. I don't buy any of that. I don't think anybody listening, watching, here in this room buys that. As I've said earlier on, it's not. I think Deputy Dillon and Deputy O'Connell went through this. This is not appropriate and how things should be done. Okay? So, in relation to NK Management, can you tell us, there was a new company set up, Noel Kelly Management Nominees Limited, registered on the 16th of March 2023. So this is a third company.
Yeah.
And what's the purpose of that?
I'm not here to discuss that.
Okay,
I'm
fine.
here to discuss
fine.
exactly
So
what's
it's not, but it's nothing to do with anything to do with here.
Yeah.
It's not, obviously.
No.
Then. Right, that's fine. In relation to, so from your perspective as regards, you get advertising clients into RTE on the one hand, and obviously you represent various different clients as an agent to the stars or talent, whatever phrase people are using these days, on the other hand. So there must be you're doing significant amount of business for RTE as regards generating advertising revenue on the one hand, and obviously negotiating fairly significant contracts for your clients who work in RTE on the other hand. Is that a fair statement?
No.
No?
No, no. So, for instance, we have a young chef on our books, and
sorry if you just
sorry no, but I'm just trying to explain. A young chef on our books, and then we got that chef a book deal, right? So now the chef's an author,
yeah,
and then we got the chef a TV show. Some of the money that so. The issue is there's a huge lack of funding for programme making, so we would try and get sponsors to help make.
But you do get sponsors for RTE for advertising purposes for shows.
No, it'd be for completely independent shows. That
okay,
RTE,
well look, I'll be honest with you.
Buy, but I'm
you're
just
not going to
that
give me this information. I'll be asking RTE for the last 10 years based on advertising and clients, all of that. So we'll be getting all that.
Sure.
Last three very quick questions to Ryan. Earlier, your agent or your representative, Mr. Kelly, said a contract isn't a contract unless it's agreed by both parties. So, how do you stand currently as regards your relationship with RTE? Are you employed or not? How do you perceive that? That's the first question.
Okay,
second question, you can take these down. That's the first question. Second question is in relation to one of the gigs with Reynolds, there was an invoice for $847 for somebody to assist you or something. You might draw a light on that because a number of us would. And thirdly, and this genuine, honest question, Toy Show the Musical has been an unmitigated disaster, right? Conceptually, in every way. In fairness to you, you had zero to do with it, right? You didn't promote it, weren't involved in it, anything. But from the outset, did you think that this was a disaster and a bad idea and you didn't want anything to do with it? They're my three last questions.
Just briefly, Mr. Tubridy.
On all three?
Yeah, just very briefly.
My understanding is I am still in contract with RTE, yes, and my aim and hope is to go back to work.
Fair enough.
The billing you referred to was a car service from Dublin to Drogheda and back all in one night. I can go into further detail if you wish, but that's what that is.
For you or for somebody else?
Oh, no, for me.
Okay.
And thirdly and finally, the Toy Show, the musical. I think that the people in RTE were trying to dream big. I always wish them well with that, but it wasn't for me.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Catherine Murphy.
Thank you, and you're very welcome.
Thank you, Deputy.
Just want to go back to the invoices, and like invoices are not, Mr. Kelly, are not a creative document. They're intended to be a true record to say what service has been provided or what work is done. So essentially, both sides were complicit in what the chair of the board said, designed to deceive. And so, do you accept that, or did you challenge that, that this...
We were deceived. We no knowledge whatsoever of the arrangement on the part.
But you issued the invoices,
But if I could just explain, we weren't consulted about it, nor were we told at any stage of the nature of it. And we were instructed by RTE for the second and third invoices on the Reddit Roadshow to make out the invoices to artists for consultancy services. We sent them to RTE, who look out.
You have a number of companies. You know what it is to raise an invoice. you took instructions from RTE without challenge, and essentially there's a moral and legal imperative around that. Essentially, and I'd like to ask Mr. Tubridy.
Sorry, can I just finish that? At the time, we didn't know who Astis was, and we presumed that they had a relationship with Renault, and we were following instructions.
I want this,
and we got paid by Astis, not by RTE.
Yeah, this following instructions. It's called the Nuremberg defence. Mr. Tubridy, would you be happy with that kind of arrangement not being challenged, because it was being done in your name?
Deputy Murphy, I will tell you that my involvement in anything, I have not sat down in front of an RT management person in 20 years to talk about money, contracts, anything like that whatsoever. That's why I have Mr. Noel Kelly.
But are you happy with just following instructions in relation to, like, you know what an invoice is? I mean,
honest to goodness, I don't get into invoices and that kind of thing. My job is to sit in front of a microphone and present a radio show or a TV show. Honest to goodness, I trust Noel. He trusts the process. We all hope to get the best deal in life.
It's really not the question I'm asking. I want to go back to the Grant Thornton are conducting a second review into 120,000. We know there was a 225. That's the 75. They're conducting another review into the 120,000. That was 2017 to 2019. That you're saying categorically that just simply was waived. It wasn't paid, and RTE knew that. RTE knew that. Do you have any explanation why they would be conducting an expensive review into that? If they
I've no idea. We have a further meeting with Grant Thornton on that. We asked RTE. Bear with me 1 second. Sorry. We asked RTE.
I can come in there if you like,
yeah,
Deputy. In discussions with the RTE in March 2020, they indicated to us that they were going to treat this in their accounts, and they said for accountancy reasons that they were going to take the 120 off the previous 3 years contracts. So that's 50 in year 5, 50 in year 4, 20 in year 3, extraordinary figures. And we said that this didn't make any sense, as we had neither invoiced or received or refunded the 120. So how could it be deducted? This is the question we were posing to them, saying this seems kind of mad. And RTE's proposed treatment of this would give the impression that I was being paid €120,000 less than I was actually paid. And we made it clear, Deputy, that the 120,000 should not be taken off or deducted for prior year actual earnings, as you can see in your booklet on pages 14 and 15. And RTE appeared to agree with our point, and it accepted our amendments in the final letter of agreement on this issue. Again, page 16 of the documents provided. However, on the 21st and 23rd of January, when the top 10 earners were published, RTE appears to have reverted, oddly, to their original stance and deducted the 120,000, as they originally said they would do. So we were obviously very surprised to see that.
Right. Okay. Just in relation to the, you did open by saying that you're a contractor, and we think we all understand.
An independent contractor.
Independent contractor. But RTE wouldn't normally find you work as an independent contractor, and that's why this
is not ordinary.
This is not ordinary, and that's how it's impossible for us to separate out.
I understand
the difference between the Renault contract and your salary.
Yes.
Because effectively it would be RTE finding you work, where you would normally find that work yourself.
Again, I would hand this to Noel, because he's the one who finds the work, if you will, and negotiates the contract side of things.
Okay.
The value with Renault or for RTE is keeping Renault happy as a sponsor, keeping them on board and making sure that they come back season after season. So that's really why RTE wanted to do this. They're the biggest sponsor that they actually have. So
yeah, can I just ask you? I'm very short on time. Can I? And I'm trying not to be rude. It's just. Did you know, Mr. Kelly, that Renault had insisted on the commercial agreement was done on a cost-neutral basis?
No, I had no idea.
Because that,
No idea.
obviously...
Because we invoiced Renault. We had no idea. No idea.
Just in relation to like Mr. Kelly, who would you normally deal with when you're dealing with, the contractual arrangements for your clients?
I suppose, and it depends really. Like some of our contractors might do 8 1.5-hour shows in a year, and that's it.
But you wouldn't normally deal with the Director General?
No, that would only be on bigger contracts. So generally it would be the head of radio. And so some contracts just radio only. You do a 1-hour radio show once a week, or you might do.
So Dean Forrest was not the only one that would have been aware of all of this.
No,
we've been told.
No, absolutely
that
not.
was only one person had an overview of all of this.
Couldn't have been, and that's why I find this whole thing so bizarre. But in relation to some guys might just have a 1-hour like a 1-hour radio contract. Some would have a TV contract. Some might have a bit of radio and a bit of TV. And so it would depend, head of TV, under head of TV, executive, MD of TV, MD of radio. It would just depend where it would sit. And then you'd have an overall, like Alan Tyler, Stuff was saying, like he's head of entertainment.
Sorry, I have very little time.
Sorry. So I'm just saying, there's so many people, like there's 1,800 people in the organisation, so many people to deal with.
You don't operate for 1,800 people, you're an
No.
small number of people. The Breda O'Keefe's statement last week, she said that when I left in March 2020, an RTE guarantee on the proposed Renault agreement was not on offer, as far as I was aware. So she's linking in the Renault agreement with the salary. Yeah. And you can see why this keeps on coming back to this same thing. And you have in your booklet, I think on page 7, the email from Breda O'Keefe. Mm-hmm. And was there other correspondence? Because this then wasn't finalised until May.
Yeah.
And the RTE statement this morning is telling us that the February agreement is being characterised as a contractual commitment.
If I can explain, the whole purpose of this, it wasn't about contract, not contract. The whole purpose of this was other people knew Bardee Forbes. That's the whole point. And all along, and it was said to you, like the week before last, central to this, nobody else knew. There was no secret. And this is the secret piece. So there was no secret whatsoever. We don't, there's no secret.
Yeah. I mean, given all you've listened to over the last few weeks, Mr. Tubridy, and you say you want to go back and work on the radio, it seems to me that, looking at it from your perspective, that appears to come across as strange, given the all of the issues that you've documented in your booklet and the opening statement.
What's strange? Excuse me, sorry.
Wanting to go back to an organisation that you obviously feel has badly damaged you.
I've been badly damaged by the last 3 weeks, to be honest with you, but not necessarily by RTE as an institution. I think there are people that I'm trying to get back to work with, like most decent Irish people. They're in there making an honest living, and they're working hard to get together the shows, and I want to be back with them. I had my beef, with some people there, as is obvious in the documents, but I still see my future there, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I just want to take the opportunity to welcome both of you here, and I think it's important to reference that you were not compelled to be here, which is obviously welcome. Mr. Tubridy, the first question I have for you is, when you have a major guest coming on the show, how long does it take you to prepare for that?
Well, forgive me, it's an odd question. Do you mean on the night of a show?
No, come on, it's a good question. I just want to ask, how long does it take you to prepare for a major act coming on the Late Late Show?
It takes days and weeks.
Okay. This is a 39-page document, right? Just for people who are not aware what it looks like, this document was provided to us this morning. This came into our Microsoft Teams account this morning at 8:23, if I'm correct, right?
Yes.
39 pages.
Yes.
The meeting commenced at 10:30 in private session here today.
Yes.
That's not that much time to go through 39 pages.
I understand.
Can you accept, just 1 second.
Yes.
Can you accept how it's not physically possible for anybody here to comprehensively go through that information.
That was unfortunate, and I have to say I do apologise to every single member of the committee for that. It has been a torturous 3 weeks. Please allow me to finish the sentence. But unfortunately, you have to. What's gone missing in the last 3 weeks. Forgive me.
Yeah, just briefly.
There's been a humanity bypass a bit here. Okay, so I just bear with us. We have worked tirelessly to put this document together.
Okay.
And we got it in when we could, and I apologise.
Thank you.
Look, I appreciate your apology and accept it. And you know what? Purely from a human perspective, I think all of us here understand this is difficult. We're politicians. We know what it's like. Okay, to be dragged through the rigour. And unfortunately, this is the next point of questioning I wanted to come to anyway, Mr. Tubridy. So you have moved on to that properly. Look, the reason this has erupted is because of the work that was done by the report, by the audit that was identified the pay arrangements, and which we've discussed already with the Executive Board of RT. I just want to get a clear picture. When did you first become aware of the, I suppose, issues that were brought to light through the audit that was carried out? When did you first get knowledge of that audit being carried out?
I'm going to say, what are we on now? July, June, maybe just when they started to be honest with you, when they issued the statement was when I really became engaged in this story. I had no idea this thing was
just
going
to clarify, I think that's a really important question. I'm not trying to trip you up.
No, I appreciate that. I'm telling you the truth
when did
myself.
you become aware that report was being carried out?
Pardon me, I'm sorry.
I'm just asking you once again. I just want to ask you in relation to the report that was carried out.
Yes, of course.
When did you become aware of the Grant Thornton report?
The 26th of June, 2023.
Okay, so the 26th of June, 2023 was the very first time that you had knowledge
that the Grant Thornton report
was being done. And can I ask that in relation, the same question, in relation to Mr. Kelly? Obviously, if they were delving into the pay arrangements, which they did highlight concerns with, was that the same for you?
No. For us, it was in May. We had a meeting with Grant Thornton, and there was
May 23. Is that correct?
May 23. That we had a meeting with Grant Thornton.
Is that the first time that documents were requested from your agency, your company, in relation to Mr. Tubridy's pay?
On the 3rd of May, RT Legal emailed us and asked us about invoice queries. On the 26th of May, RT Legal wrote to us and said that Grant Thornton were investigating the process. 31st of May, we met with Grant Thornton and discussed everything with them. On 23rd of June was RT's first statement, and then 26th of June, we only received the report. We only received the report on the 26th of June. We didn't get a copy of the report.
Okay. And when did you first alert Mr. Tubridy that the report was being carried out, and that perhaps you may have had concerns?
Was it the 22nd of June? The 22nd of June, when the statement came out from RTE, the statement, and then they released the report. We didn't even have the report.
Yeah.
And so at that stage, that's what we were saying. So that happened on the Thursday. And then it was 4 days later before they put in the correction saying that there was no wrongdoing on behalf of Ryan Tubridy ourselves. And then at that stage, Ryan was off air, and so the whole thing. So had they, what did you say, not be so hasty, or that there was...
If they hadn't rushed everything out, 99% of this whole thing wouldn't be an issue, because we would have given them everything they wanted if they simply asked questions.
The reason I want to ask you this question, I think it's for your own benefit, Mr. Tubridy, right? And I know that you may feel I'm being some way indignant with you, but I'm not.
Not at all. I totally understand what you're saying.
The reason I'm asking it is because it's crucial to us understanding and verifying that your information is correct. It was nothing to do with your decision to step down from the Late Show.
Sorry,
that's why I'm asking.
You're trying to clarify the latest.
No. That's clarified. I'm content with that.
I'm happy to hear
the next thing I want to move on to is in relation to the deal surrounding Renault. So in 2020, the first year of the deal, correct to say, was 2021, wasn't that right?
Yeah, the first year should have been 2020, and then it would have been 2021 up to 24. But obviously with COVID, there was no events on 20 or 21. So the first lot of events actually happened in 22, when we had the first road shows out in Cork, Dublin, Drogheda.
And so at what stage were you informed by Reynolds that they were not going to continue on with their part of the deal in relation to in relation to the pandemic, the outbreak of the pandemic, and their withdrawal from that, and subsequently RTE stepping in and providing the funding to fill in the gap?
No, they never stepped back from the arrangement. Renner was still the sponsor, and it was like at no stage was it going to be RTE.
But when I say step back from the arrangement, that as we've discussed here already, the money was paid by RTE. That's 75,000, correct?
No, the money was paid by Renault.
Yes, but in terms of the latter half of that, where Mr. Tubridy was not participating,
they were paid by Astus.
They were paid by Astus.
Yes, yeah.
Which effectively, that's what we need to get an understanding of. What work was done in return for that in the later years during the pandemic in 2022?
Sure. So, as I said, the first 3 that were supposed to be done in 20 were done in 22. So there's still 6 road shows owed for 20 and 21, or if you like 23, 24. So they're still under contract to do those road shows.
So you're saying to me that those are owed, that you have to go on and do them subsequently, but you were paid in advance, Mr. Tubridy.
Yes, the service is outstanding. I absolutely am good to that.
No, I must ask, from the point of view of reputational damage, right, and I think this is key, did you not assess that going into the pandemic, and we all know how difficult it was, and you broadcast throughout it with great admiration and respect from the population, but did you in any way say to yourself, this is a dangerous situation, because the published figures in relation pertaining to my salary that have been published in newspapers, I think the Irish Independent were publishing those figures, were not reflective of your actual take-home pay. And I have heard the evidence you provided and what you've said.
Yes.
At the end of the day, there was a tripartite agreement there involving the national broadcaster in RTE with Renault and yourselves. But did you not ask yourself the question, maybe it's just not wise for me to be taking this money at this point in time, considering what was going on in the country?
Yep, I think it's a fair observation, and I probably should have been a bit more inquisitive about these things.
You never asked any questions in relation to that.
I say what I say. I should have been more inquisitive. It's a fair point.
Deputy, can I just answer there? This contract was written before COVID. So it's just then COVID happened. So this was starting in 2020.
To be fair, Mr. Kelly,
and then COVID started.
But hang on a second, Mr. Kelly. To be fair, my line of questioning is reflecting that. But I'm just asking in relation to the outbreak of COVID, was it really necessary that this arrangement in some shape or form remained in place, where ultimately, the taxpayers' money involved in RTE as an organisation was being used to supplement Mr. Tubridy's income? That's the perception here we need to deal with.
No, that's the perception, but that's not the reality.
Okay.
This was a contract with Renault for services, and RTE and Renault are the parties.
Those services were not provided, but the payment was made.
To be honest with you, by 2022 they all would have been provided if COVID wasn't there.
We know that.
3 years. Certainly.
We know that.
So now there's 6 road shows owed.
Okay. Can I just ask in relation to the negotiations around pay? This is important because we did discuss it with the RTE Executive Board. They were not very forthcoming with answers. And now there is a very wide chasm between the information that you've provided us with us today and what they've given us previously. But I want to ask, who in the Executive Board of RTE was involved in those pay negotiations?
Who in the Executive Board?
Yes, was present and involved.
Again, you'd have the head of TV, head of radio, they'd say, right, we want these hours, we want those hours, and then they discuss that with the CFO, with the relevant accountants. And look, as I said, there's lots of accountants and lawyers, everything else. So they would all have their conversations, and then they would come back. And my job is to get the best deal from them.
I'm so sorry, but you didn't answer my question.
No,
I'm going to ask you again, who was present from the Executive Board of RTE for these negotiations?
Breda, Trish, so CFO, legal, and then if there was an impasse,
Take a minute to read it, it's okay.
Sure. So you'd have Breda O'Keefe, Dee Forbes, ourselves, our lawyer, and Jim Jennings from the exec.
Okay, look, I acknowledge my time is up, but I can come back subsequently.
Okay, thank you. So we have to finish at 2 o'clock, okay? So I just have some questions myself. I want to ask, just Mr. Kelly, the number of presenters you represent at RTE, you said 3 of the top 10. How many in total do you represent? How many people engaged at RTE do you represent?
Oh, Lord.
Is it 20?
Well, no, not at all. The ones that we really represent.
Come on, look, don't delay the answer. I'm asking you straight.
Sorry, we would represent full so full contract would be somebody who had TV and radio.
Yeah.
That's 3, and then there would be other people who might just do a one-off series or whatever.
Is it a dozen? Is it a dozen?
No, it wouldn't be.
Is it 6?
It'd be nearer to, like I'd say, 3 full time, and then the rest would just be part time or.
And how would you describe your trade?
We're an agency that we.
Yeah, but your own trade, like your background in that. Are you a negotiator? Are you a consultant? What type of work have you done? We'll say.
My background would be marketing and brand and
sales.
And sales, and I see people as brands, and how you take a young talent, and talent to me is like talent to me is the person behind reception who makes you feel like today the people that make us feel welcome when you come in. That's a talent. The camera people, the floor people. That talent to me isn't like a rock god. It's not like a singer or a Tom Cruise.
We'll all agree on that one. Yeah. But just in relation to your the type of, so you come from a sales background.
Yes, the American background.
What kind of goods would you have sold?
Sorry?
What kind of goods would you have sold? What kind of marketing would you have been involved in? Just briefly.
So I have this company. We're
say going back before you got involved.
Oh, sure.
RT,
so we're
years ago.
NK CMS for 26 years. Before I worked for Cadbury's.
What were you selling for Cadbury's?
Sorry?
What were you selling for Cadbury's?
Cadbury's?
Yeah, chocolate. Okay. Thank you.
Chocolate.
Thank you. That's fine.
Wasn't soap anyway.
That's fine. Thank you.
Soap.
And tell me this: your relationship with D. Forbes.
Yes.
The senior staff at RTE, David described that you had a very close relationship.
Yeah.
With D. Forbes.
I saw that. Well, if a close relationship is in a room with lawyers and accountants, and not a cup of tea between you, never had met for lunch, never met for dinner. I don't know the lady. I've always found her to be terribly professional. I'm working hard during COVID and everything else. I don't know the lady, and I would only ever meet D. Forbes if there was an impasse in a contract, or where we're at, or what can we do. Okay. So I don't know her.
So we'd say.
But sorry, I've met her, but
Yeah, and
I'm meeting you
today. I don't want to be disrespectful to you, but you come from a background selling chocolate.
Yeah.
And now you're negotiating on behalf of the top stars in the country. And great success to you for that. Okay. In terms of deals, obviously how deals are done, and this has always been fascinating, I think, in a lot of people's minds. In terms of the leverage that you have, we'll say, in terms of when you're negotiating, sure. Tell me briefly what that leverage derives from, because RT have told us previously in this committee room, the Public Accounts Committee,
sure.
that Mr. Tubridy and other, very popular stars, very good at their job, would walk, right? You have said no, that's not the case here today. So where does that leverage come from?
So I'll tell you exactly where, and
tell me about the skill of that.
I come from a working class background. I come from a very, very hard working class background. Both my parents worked very hard, and all they ever said to us was, "You work hard, and then you work harder, and if you want something, then you work hard again." So for me,
I accept that.
So for me, it's not, you don't have leverage. I manage people that have no management. I manage people that have no union, that have no representative. I work with people that have contract only.
Can I cut to the chase?
Sure. Sorry.
Anybody that's ever done a bit of wheeling and dealing will know this, right? When you're sitting there, and it's whoever blinks first, right? And you're there and you're negotiating with the top finance people or legal people, or indeed with the Director General. Where does that leverage derive from? Because there's a clear contradiction between your position, right? And you come from a background of sales, and yet selling chocolate, and not being derived from it. That's just, and fair play to you. You worked your way up, right? But where does that leverage come from? You're not giving me an answer to this.
I don't understand what you mean by leverage.
Where does the power? In other words, you're bargaining power. You need bargaining power when you're wheeling and dealing, and when you're involved in sales, when you're involved in negotiations.
Oh, sorry.
You're involved in serious negotiations.
I get you.
Sorry, Mr. Kelly. No, let me clarify. You're involved with, you know what I'm talking about here.
Yeah.
You're involved in serious negotiations, and don't minimise this, right? On behalf of the
I'm
not trying to. Where does the leverage and power derive from?
It's not leverage or power. It's all based on fact, and it's all based on figures and commercial reality. and that's what it's based on. And over the period of those 6 years, from 2012 to 2020, Ryan Tubridy's shows. Now, you could say somebody else could do the show and all of that sort of stuff. Ryan Tubridy's shows over that period with the team, completely, hugely the team. I mean, the team, it's a jigsaw of talent. So over those 6 years, Ryan Tubridy brought in 100 million in commercial revenue. And in fairness, it was a hugely successful commercial operation. They, like in 2001, they took in 148 million in OT, just purely in commercial and not licensed. Okay. So it's a big.
You've outlined that very well, and thanks for that. So just in relation to some people in RT, we have, looking at some of the documents, come across to me that you have significant influence and significant power in terms of negotiating at RT. And some people, been more than once over the years, been said to me, the real Director General at RT is Noel Kelly, is you. It's on any basis, in fact.
I know, I'm just...
That's what's being said. Not by somebody. Not by somebody on the street corner. This is by people who are working in RTE. Okay.
It's you know what? It's so ridiculous. We do deals, right, and we do contracts. Okay. For our people. I might be in RTE and can I move six times in a year. But equally we would be working with BBC, NBC. Okay. So it's not.
Can I move to one of those deals for a moment? Just in relation to the Renault deal, the tripartite deal, yourselves, Renault and RTE. It's a one-year deal from October 2020 to December 21. So we've been told from the start that it's a 3-year deal, but it wasn't a 3-year deal. It's here in front of me. I have it here, okay? I've read it carefully. That it's a 3-year deal, or intended to be a 3-year deal. But that's not seen in the contract anywhere. It's nowhere in the contract.
It was intended to be a 5-year deal?
Yeah, but it's not in the contract.
Right.
And can I ask you this? And you would be used to signing contracts, right? Why did you expect RTE to underwrite it for 3 years when this is only a 1-year deal?
Again, why? The relationship is with Renault and the sponsor. Renault and RTE.
But why did you expect that?
All I actually want them to all I want them to underwrite was that if the sponsor changed
Mr. Kelly, hold on now, you're signing the deal, and you know that unless it's nailed down in that, signed on the dotted line, right, it doesn't stand for anything. Isn't that correct? You know that.
We had, as I said, we had a separate contract for Ryan to do this outside of his radio and TV.
And tell me, why is there no figure mentioned in it? There is no figure mentioned of 75,000 per annum.
Well,
why is that?
Sorry, in the pack, in the invoice, and the instructions, everything is there.
I mean, you rubbished the side letter earlier on in it. You minimised the side letter, right? You minimised that earlier on in the meeting. The document, the primary document, is the tripartite agreement. That's what it is. So here we have a document that with no figure mentioned in it, not signed up for a 3-year deal, but you're working on the basis that has 3-year deals, right? And the other question I want to ask you is that why, and I haven't heard a clear explanation for this, why was this only signed on the 21st of April this year when the 10-10-20 hit the fan?
Because it was a working document. The first one was supposed to be 20, then 21, 22. So that's why, to be honest with you, it was a working document insofar as it was about.
But Mr. Kelly, you're asking me and the committee and the public to believe here today, and just let me tell you what you're asking to believe. They're asking to believe that that you'll enter into an agreement, not not signed to this year, right? It's run 3 years without having it nailed down legally and without the signatures of your agency on it. That's cock and bull.
But the agreement, Kerlock, came from RTE to us.
No, I don't care where it came from. You are an agent, right? A professional agent, right? And people say you're very successful at it. You mean to tell me that you entered into this without this having been tied down for 3 years? Because that's the effect of it. You did not sell. Niamh McCormack signed it on 21st of the 4th on behalf of you and Mr. Tubridy, 21st of the 4th, 23. And can I ask you this? An RT never signed it. There's no RT signature on it. And let me just say this to you. What's also incredible is the second last line in the agreement says, once signed by all parties, this agreement will constitute a legally binding agreement, a legally binding document, and it's acknowledged that there is a valid consideration for this agreement. Once it's signed by all parties, Now, you were telling me you went along in a wing and a prayer with 4 major faults in this. No signatures, not signed, signed this year, no figures mentioned in it, not a 3-year deal. And you were happy as a professional agent to sign off on this. You're asking me to believe that?
The contract in total was brokered between the contract was with the RTE and Renault, and we were the third party to this contract. We agreed for 75,000 a year for a separate contract to provide those services, and that's what we did.
And Mr. Kelly, you don't sign into contracts. You know, and I know that you don't sign contracts, or you don't enter into agreements or contracts on the basis of a document like that. You know that. Am I not correct in saying that?
But RTE had brokered the contract.
I don't care who brokered it. You're telling me that you went along for 3 years on a wing and a prayer. That's what you're expecting us to believe here today.
No,
and I don't believe that.
Okay, well,
I don't believe you.
Going along in a wing and a prayer. Obviously, the events were pushed out because of COVID.
I don't care what was pushed out. There was nothing to stop it from coming in an envelope and signing it. It could have been sent by courier to you, and you could have signed it, right, back at that time. But you didn't, and the figures weren't in it. And the 3-year dimension wasn't in it. That's the facts. That deal is not credible the way it's framed.
Well, the deal was brokered by RTE.
Thank you. Okay. So, look, we've gone through a lot of questions, and we have to finish because, in fairness to the witnesses, in fairness to you, you have come voluntarily. You've gone through 3 hours of questioning. I know, Mr. Tubridy and Mr. Kelly, you're facing 3 more hours in the afternoon, so I want to be fair to you. You need a break of an hour, right? So I'm going to, I want to thank you for attending. I also want to thank the Controller and Auditor General, James McCarthy, and his staff for attending. It is agreed that the Clerk will seek any follow-up information and carry out any agreed actions arising from the meeting. Agreed? Okay. It is also agreed that we note and publish the opening statements and briefing material provided for today's meeting. Agreed. And I welcome the fact, I know they were long, I wanted you to be able to read out your side of it.
Yes.
That was important at the start.
Gary,
before 5 minutes.
Before I go, can I just briefly say, Gavneshka, just to say thank you to the committee for the courtesy with which they've afforded us with their questions today. I'm sure there are more pressing issues in the world, but at the same time, that's not to belittle what we were talking about today. Thank you for your time and thank you for sharing it.
Thanks for attending.
No, it's a pleasure.
You probably have heard me quoted as saying many times that it is really important to hear your side of it and to get you in.
As I say, we respect the Oireachtas and the committee, so thank you.
I want to thank you for that. So the meeting of the Public Accounts Committee is adjourned from 9:30 on Thursday, the 13th of July. Thank you very much.
So for our nila vrihir, agus our nila gani fast agus good triat, a creef no free three creased our doing direct. We beseech thee, O Lord, our actions by thy holy inspirations and carry them on by thy gracious assistance, that every word and work of ours may always begin from thee and by thee be happily ended through Christ our Lord. Amen. We now take leaders' questions under Standing Order 36. I call on Deputy Pearse Doherty, please.
Ik kan koorje agus Lianen en Fars voor Hospital Nation in de Johani a Hishi agus ni federal in board gefoil en doen kin werewis in Hospital Shokrini agus kin Costas Jerry ave